Jones. I'm the chairman of the Oklahoma County Planning Commission, and I'm calling to order the September 21st meeting of the County Planning Commission. First order of business is the roll call.
Members of the Oklahoma County Planning Commission are Mrs. Irene Martin. Here. Mr. David Ritchie. Here. Mr. James Benson. Here. Mr. Will K. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Charles DeFuria.
Here.
Mr. David Martin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the previous meeting's minutes. That was the August 17th, 2017 minutes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the August 17th, 2017 meeting. Any discussion?
Mrs. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Ritchie?
I recuse myself. I wasn't in attendance.
Okay. Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Will K. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Charles DeFuria?
Yes.
Mr. David Martin?
I'm saying I was absent also.
Okay. And we have Commissioner Vaughn.
Approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Vote aye. Apologize, my clock in my office is slow. So, you add that to me, it's also slow, and it's hard.
We're going to have a short change in the agenda and moving item number 6 from its location to the discussion now. And item number 6 is a deferred item, discussion and possible action to approve or deny the preliminary plat, which is PC 2017-04 of Prosper Business Park. Tyler?
Yeah. You've got the preliminary plat is the applicant is requesting that we give him a little more time to comply with some rules that the county has bestowed on him for this meeting.
Did he submit?
He submitted his letter, and I believe he's present.
Sir, would you like to step forward and request the deferment?
Dean Colita, KBG Engineering, representing the owner. We just need a little bit more time to deal with some of the comments that Ron Cardwell had. We're going to purchase the property to the south and move the detention pond there, and so we're kind of working that as per Ron's request. So we were formally request deferral to the next meeting.
We have a request to defer item number 6. Do I hear a motion that we do that?
I'll make a motion that we defer item number 6 for what meeting?
To the next meeting, the October 19th, I believe.
Okay. To the month of October.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'll have a roll call vote.
Yes. Mrs. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Ritchie?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
And Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Moving back to item number 5 now. This is also a deferred item. Discussion and possible action to approve or deny a zoning change from AA, Agricultural and Rural Residential District, to Planned Unit Development, which is PUD 2017-02, to develop and operate a special event center. It will be known as Bomber Hall.
Yes, this item was on last month's agenda. There were lengthy discussions of pros and cons for the event center, and it was decided that they would need to go in conference or meet with the landowners, and I believe that meeting has taken place. I'm not aware of the results of that, but that meeting did take place, and they're here today to discuss the new. They rewrote their statement, their mission statement after their meeting, and you have it before you, and I believe I sent it to you in advance. The new hours and different things that they added to it. So they're here to talk about their application.
Someone who would like to talk about this application, like to come forward, identify yourself and tell us your relation to the project.
Sir, good afternoon. Jason Spencer with Craft and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, Yukon. I'm here with the applicants, Michael and Sharon Hong. We've got a few slides, and I can pass some of those out as well.
Does anyone want a copy of the new revised PUD?
I have one.
It's dated September 11th.
Thank you. If you recall at the last meeting, we requested deferral of this application in order to meet with the neighbors and also tighten up the PUD statement as requested by this commission. And we've done just that. We conducted 2 meetings at the subject property. Unfortunately, there was a heavy rain on the time of the first meeting on August 22nd, and none of the neighbors attended. However, the owners did send out invitations for a second meeting to all the neighbors in Summit Lakes Edition. That meeting took place on September 5th, and we had approximately 15 neighbors in attendance. And it included neighbors from Summit Lake Estates, Mission Springs, also Fossil Creek Edition. So we felt it was a very productive meeting where we discussed the neighbors' concerns and developed additional restrictions to the PUD. Upon conclusion of the meeting, we felt that a majority of the neighbors, excluding a couple of people, were fairly happy with the additional restrictions. We then revised the PUD, which is the ones in front of you today, to reflect what was discussed in that meeting. And I'll go over those restrictions that we added briefly here. It included limiting the capacity to 300 maximum. If you recall last time we had an exclusion for special events, that's been removed. I don't think that was reflected in the staff report, but it has been removed, so it's just a maximum of 300. We added some sign restrictions to the PUD, basically limiting the height and display area to what they have across the street in Summit Lake Estates, so it'll be no bigger, although the sign that they're proposing will probably be a little bit smaller than that even. And then any illumination will be directed away from Summit Lake Estates. I know hours of operation were discussed heavily, and so we've had changes to those. We've separated that out as Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. with the music turned off by 10 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to midnight with music turned off at 11 p.m. Fireworks were another item of discussion. So we've limited that to only on Saturdays, New Year's Eve, and the week of the 4th of July. We've prohibited those after 11 p.m., excluding New Year's and 4th of July week, with the duration not to exceed 5 minutes, excluding New Year's and 4th of July. The fireworks we've further limited to only being 30 days per year. And so basically that means that they're not going to be able to do it on every Saturday throughout the year. We put some additional language in regarding outdoor music and band restrictions, prohibited outdoor music and bands after 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and after 10:45 Friday and Saturday. However, we would put a stipulation in there for during the fireworks to allow, during that 5-minute duration of fireworks, to allow a song to play during that time. We've also stipulated any outdoor speakers will be faced to the west, which will face away from the neighboring properties. Some additional restrictions on alcohol service to be provided by a licensed bartender, licensed and bonded security officer must be present. Service prohibited after 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and after 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Another item that was discussed at the meeting was the driveway. The existing driveway is located on May. Can't see the board, but it's about in the middle of the site. The site's outlined in blue there. And the neighbors had expressed a desire to move it from the existing location onto Coffee Creek Boulevard, or sorry, Coffee Creek Road. Unfortunately, we don't think this is feasible due to the floodplain, and this map shows the floodplain coming off of that tributary drain into Deer Creek that comes across the property. This area in particular has flooded fairly often during heavy rains, and where water's topped Coffee Creek Road in that area by several feet, so it makes the driveway connection rather impractical. The neighbors had identified an existing drive that has a little bit of a back trail coming around the property that's further to the west. However, it's located outside of this PUD and is under separate ownership. We did have at a recent, the owners had a recent family wedding, and they did have a county sheriff deputy on site out there, and they asked him to monitor the traffic before and afterwards. We do have a letter from him that I can pass out that basically stated they didn't observe any issues pertaining to traffic with people coming and leaving the site. We think that the existing driveway on May will function sufficiently. May is an arterial road, paved arterial road. The peak traffic that would be generated from a typical wedding events venue is not likely to coincide with peak traffic on May Avenue from people, going to work in the mornings or coming home from work in the evenings. So for that reason, we would prefer and feel that keeping the driveway at the existing location on May should be sufficient. We also understand that the neighbors had hired a sound consultant. We did receive a copy of his letter and read through that. Looking at that, it appeared to us that a lot of his analysis was based upon assumptions. One in particular was they utilized that Bank Event Center in Bixby for the base sound level of 112 decibels. And just to put that in perspective, we found some information regarding the University of Michigan Stadium with over 109,000 screaming fans set a record of 110 decibels. So I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that. Or anywhere near a rock band heavy metal concert that would be similar to something at Chesapeake Arena. It's just not feasible for this event venue and the size with 300 people max capacity. We do have a video where the owner of the property did a little bit of sound testing, and basically he turned up the volume of the sound system within the event facility and left the barn door open, turned it to max volume, measured the sound in there, and measured it out at a couple places on May Avenue. I'll see if this will play and probably fast forward through a little bit of it. And this is at their driveway on May Avenue. And like I said, the doors to the barn are open. see a jump there with the car driving by, but the ambient level out there is similar to what was estimated in the letter from the sound consultant. Fast forward through some of this. So this is at a location looking back directly at the event center there.
Is that building the music was playing in?
Correct. Yes, sir. So you can see it's still around the ambient level from the letter that we received. So this is headed back to the barn. So you can start to hear it as you come up the building. There's the door open. Still showing 85 to 90 decibels there in the building, which is very loud. At a recent family, that same recent family event that the sheriff's deputy was working at, they'd also asked that sheriff to evaluate the noise out there. He included that in his letter that I provided to, stating he couldn't hear the activities from the event or the music from Summit Lake Estates. He did recommend toning down the fireworks a little bit, which we have placed additional restrictions on in the PUD. So we placed restrictions on the timing and the speaker orientation for music and bands, and we don't believe that this will be a nuisance to any of the neighbors. We know the neighbors had also submitted a slide showing an event center in Edmond that was denied. We don't believe that's a good comparison as to this application here. It was located within a residential neighborhood in the city limits, and it I believe it's a gated neighborhood and would have utilized their drives as well, and so we just don't feel that's a good comparison. We think that the revised PUD addresses the majority of the neighbors' concerns. We think it provides for the restrictions that this commission is looking for, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, commissioners? Yes, sir. Ray?
Well, I want to start with Ms. Crawford, if I might. The document that we have that has a lot of these provisions in it, that's our staff report. This is not a legal document, I would assume, under the law with regard to the operation of this event center. The legal document is the PUD, is it not? Okay, so the language that's in the PUD is what we need to look at.
Correct.
Okay. With that, let me ask you a few questions.
Yes, sir.
If I might. The sign that is proposed under 9.7, I'm assuming that's going to be a monument type sign.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct? I think there's some reference made to the same kind of sign they have at the entrance to the Summit Lake Estates, but I wasn't sure what kind of sign that was. I didn't see it.
And I think what their intent would be to put what would look in the appearance of a small guard type shack with a mailbox in it, and then they'll have a banner basically placed on that I think would be somewhere around probably 2 foot by 6 foot.
There will be, lighting so that it would be visible to people looking for that driveway. It'll mark the driveway as well, right?
Yes, sir, and we're looking at, ground level lighting, shining up on it, shining away from the neighboring addition there, something,
Okay.
not too bright.
At the bottom of that page, and let me just refer you to that page if I could. I've marked over my page number if there is one. I don't think there are page numbers on this. But if you go to the 9.5 through 9.11 restrictions, the hours of operation there at the bottom of the page say from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. Music turned off no later than 10 p.m. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you look over at the next page, it says outdoor music and bands. Music speakers and bands set up outdoors are to be turned off no later than 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 10:45 p.m. Friday through Saturday. Are you attempting to establish different hours for outside?
Yes, sir. We're trying to,
as opposed to inside music?
Correct. We're trying to go ahead and put some further restrictions on any music that would be outdoors, to limit it to be a little bit earlier.
All right. So we could. Inside is 8 to 11, and outside is well, it doesn't have a start time, but till 9 p.m.
On weekdays, correct, and 10:45.
Weekdays, and then 10:45 on weekends.
Yes, sir.
Whereas it's 11 inside. Okay. That was a little confusing to me. I had a question regarding the week of 4th of July. Would that week start with the 4th of July, or would it start prior to the 4th of July and ending with the 4th of July? What would be your...
We would assume, I mean, we can set that to be more specific, I guess, but probably to include the weekends either side or the 7 days surrounding that. I think a typical time when people in the county are shooting their fireworks and celebrating the holiday.
Might be helpful to the neighborhood at least to understand when those times would be.
Okay.
Not just flex.
We'd be happy to add that into there.
Yeah, and I think the idea regarding making sure that you're connecting with at least one weekend is it's a better idea. Alcohol service on that same page, the next page, is to be provided by a licensed bartender. What does that, in accordance with state regulations, I have to admit I don't know exactly what state regulations are, but what's the purpose of having a licensed bartender?
And I believe that's one of the state regulations, and I'm not completely familiar with the state regulations, but we would obviously meet those. There would be a licensed bartender there, whereas to serve and provide the alcohol, so the guests themselves are not allowed to furnish their own alcohol. It's not a, bring your own alcohol type event. One of those. It's got to be done by a professional.
Okay.
Some bartender.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. So, but someone then is in charge of the serving
yes,
of the liquor at that point. Okay. I think you've answered the question I had. Someone raised the issue of whether you could have access to Coffee Creek by way of the north entrance into the property. Is that property, you've mentioned that it was held in different parties. Are they the same individuals, or?
The owners of the PUD are partners in that property, but it is under a separate ownership. It's they're not the full owners as they are for the 40 acres that we're rezoning.
Okay. Would it be appropriate to try to obtain a second entrance or exit, in your opinion? Would that help with the traffic?
Well, from the letter from the deputy sheriff, and we just don't see that there's a major traffic problem there, and we think May Avenue's, got plenty of capacity to handle the traffic going in and out for these events. We've limited 300 people, which is not, likely to be 300 cars. And so with the few family events that they've had in the past, there hasn't been any issues out there, and they prefer to keep the driveway where it is rather than try to snake all the way through the neighboring property into their property.
Mm-hmm. Is that I guess my question was, is that a driveway that currently is open and being used by other individuals?
It's used by my family, and we've been using it for the last 14 years.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Oh, that is not, that used to be owned by, or used by a oil field service. There used to be a well on the very top of the hill, still there. We don't use it.
So it's not under... All right, I'm sorry that we don't have microphones for the members of the audience. Maybe it picks up on some of these ceiling ones. I don't know, but if I heard the responses correctly, it's not currently being used.
Correct.
It's an oil field driveway and is not utilized currently.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have right now.
You have questions?
Yes, sir. One on the noise.
Yes, sir.
Did you think about testing when you did your test the music for outdoor bands?
So they left the door open, but we didn't do any testing for that.
I'm talking about the door.
So.
When someone says outdoor band,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about a stage with drums, guitars, electronic organs. Is that what we talk about, outdoor music?
So, yeah, it would most likely be a small band, but we did not do any testing for that. So, no. We just basically tested, what we had out there. They didn't have a band to set up. I mean, it's feasible to do so. At the time, though, it wasn't done by, it was just, simply done by the owner. It's not done by a professional acoustic engineer.
But have there been reports in the past where there have been events held and people did hear music like a half mile away?
I'm not aware of that.
I see some head shaking.
I think
Please identify yourself, your relationship with the owner.
I'm Michael Hahn. I'm the owner. The last wedding that we had out there, a friend of my daughter's, when they did the fireworks, they did set up a speaker outside, and it was aimed slightly towards the neighborhood. So my son-in-law actually went over there to see how loud the fireworks were, and I'll admit they were obnoxious, and you could hear the sound of the speakers. And so we've learned a point: it's just never facing towards the neighbors, never facing towards the north or the east or the south. Obviously, after I did this experiment, I went out there and I put the speakers outside and faced them towards the west and did the same thing, just kind of a quick down and dirty. Because at the end of the day, it's just, I want to know, can you hear an obnoxious sound, or can you hear sound over there? Because if you can, I don't want to do it. It doesn't make sense for me to try to run a venue where I'm going to create enemies. And so, and we've talked about, if an outdoor band is the rate limiting step, maybe we could make a concession that we have an outdoor band, maybe once every month or something along this line, or once every 2 months. I mean, we're willing to go on this. We don't want to upset our neighbors. We don't want to create enemies in the midst of this. We're going to plan to live there, and so we want to keep good neighbors. And so, no, we've not done a formal sound test. This is just a quick down and dirty. And I'll tell you, I couldn't hear a bass, I couldn't hear a drum, and I had it maxed, and it was uncomfortable. I've brought the sound meter. I'm willing to show you. We've already been up to 52 in here. I'm going to just pass this around.
I'm technically challenged. I mean, I'm more interested in the noise that affects the neighbors
And
equipment being used. So fireworks, the sheriff's comment in his letter,
We-
indicated that the fireworks, he recommended be shut down earlier, so, and then you said something about when you did have an event, that the fireworks and the loud music was obnoxious.
The fireworks are obnoxious. You could barely hear the music, but I agree, the fireworks are obnoxious. And so when we had our meeting with the neighborhood, with all the invited people, there was concession. You know, at first we offered up that we wouldn't have it but on Saturday nights. And then we started bringing it down to 50, and then we brought it down to 30. And that was kind of where we left it when we agreed with the homeowners that were present. You know, we'd be willing to bargain on that, maybe bring it down to 10:30 or something along that line. I don't think it's unreasonable to have fireworks, but I would invite them to do the same during celebrations. They do have fireworks, and I don't think we should be expected to be mute across the street. We've not asked them to ever be mute, and we wouldn't have to be completely silent. And so, but we do want to be conscientious. I mean, if we were to have a band, nobody's even asked for a band so far outside. It's not practical for the most part. It's better for them to have the venue inside. They have the electric. They like having the reverberation of the sound in source. And so I'm not even sure if anybody would ever ask for a band outside, but it doesn't make sense.
But let me interrupt you to say, I think the important thing here is once this PUD was approved and it had certain restrictions, if you weren't the owner in the future, somebody else might like to have a big party out there. Okay? And what would be the repercussions of that? And you might even say, well, that's not what I ever intended to happen. But if someone in the future down the road came in, then you're going to say, hey, that's not my deal, I told you. So and what I'm looking at is how do you protect both your interest, because you have an interest as a private property owner, but also the neighbors. You know, if you were in Cimarron County, you probably wouldn't have a problem.
If we weren't getting a PUD, we wouldn't have a problem.
But all of us in the rural areas of Oklahoma County, with the growth and everything, we've had to learn. I live out in Deer Creek. You know, back in the early 90s, been a lot of growth, been a lot of adjustment, and I'm extra sensitive to the concerns of the neighborhoods. And so that's just a concern that I have with regard to whatever we approve will be put in stone unless amended later. But future owners would be able to do that. Let me ask you this. You know, with noises, all that, if there's a violation, who enforces that? And what penalties are they for being too loud or staying up too late, or who enforces that, and what are the penalties?
I'm not a police officer. I'm assuming that it would be the same people that would penalize you that if you didn't have a PUD. I mean, I would think that there is some harm.
That would be a violation of the zoning code.
What do you say?
Is that
That's our law here.
If it's a subdivision regulation or a PUD regulation, the county has the ability to issue citations. You go to court, similar to a traffic, okay? If the violation is a criminal offense, then the sheriff would have to commit city rights, depending on what's happening.
And I always understood that there were fines that could be levied and other things that if we were in violation. And I mean, the PUD, in my opinion, gives the neighborhood more protection than less protection. Well, I've been out there for 14 years. I used to shoot coyotes in the middle of the night with a night vision scope at 2 o'clock in the morning. There were no sound restrictions. There are no sound restrictions. But once the neighborhood started going in, you've not heard any shotguns at 2 o'clock in the morning. I respected that. We haven't been playing until all hour of the night. We respect that they're over there. We want to stay good neighbors, and that's the primary focus of what we want to do.
Well, I just had a question with regard to the
item that was discussed, some at the last meeting was the parking.
I was not here, but
Okay,
it might have been up there.
and so just kind of showing a typical, parking scenario for the cars out there.
So is this the same venue?
Yes, so that's the field just down from the barn there.
And it wasn't raining, was it?
No.
It's kind of muddy if it's raining for the biggest thing.
Well,
So how many cars, do you have with the maximum capacity of 300?
So, I mean, they've got, there's approximately 80 cars in that photo that they've got the ability to park there. And obviously there's more space to park even more. As far as hard surface parking, that we talked about last time, it's limited to, based on the event space, which is the barn itself, and totals, based on one parking space per 200 square feet, I believe that totaled 16 parking spaces.
It was 16.
Yes, sir. So the intent, and we discussed it last time, is this is a rural wedding venue. Paving a big parking lot there is going to start to take away from it. Obviously, to be successful, they've got to be able to park cars, get people in and out, and so far they've had success by doing so in the field there and having the hard surface parking up to the front for handicap or older people that are in attendance.
And I'll just say this, if it is approved, we do plan to put in a gravel parking lot to widen that road so people can park, because if there is rain, it doesn't make sense we need to have some type of hard surface. But we'd like to get approved.
You're probably thinking in the right direction, because, once again, by being under the county's jurisdiction versus if you were the city, you probably have paid parking for a venue like this. Is that correct?
Potentially in some communities, yes. And so, but that's, like we said, that takes away from the rural character of this, and we're hoping to stick with that. And so, but we're willing to look at the options on gravel parking lot, as Mr. Hahn stipulated.
I have something to add. All right, and we talked about the 16 spots, but you also say that all along the driveway that people can park along the driveway, so that adds more than 16 slots, right?
I think there's 22 cars in there, if it was done more efficiently. I think it doesn't really make sense to put them along the driveway going down to the house, just in case we need emergency access. But on the hardscape surfaces, there's also a through portion of that barn right there where 4 cars could park. But we could easily meet the 16 hard surface parking.
I have one question for you. Please, sir. You're asking us to rezone 40 acres. As I look at it, it looks like Chapel's going to occupy 5 acres, and you're going to continue to do agriculture activities. Why would you want the PUD for 40 acres?
The main reason is people want to get married on other places of that same 40 acres. I wish we would, if we have a large...
What I'm getting at is, what's the future plans for the other part of it? Is there other things in the drawing board?
The only thing we plan at some point is we'd like to have a greenhouse, and that's it. We don't. I mean, I'd be happy to put that in writing. We were going to build a personal house, a larger personal house, when my parents passed, but we don't have any further plans. And I think we'd have to come back to revisit PUD if we did.
I'm just curious, why rezone agriculture land if we're going to continue to do agriculture activities?
I believe, Richie, that the greenhouse is even mentioned on the page with the maximum capacity of 300. There's a paragraph that ends about the greenhouse.
I've got a question about that paragraph. That paragraph right before section 10, because I at the last meeting, I believe that it was limited to 3,200 square feet of the old barn, and I'm looking through this amended PUD, and I didn't see where it's limited to the 3,200 square feet old barn, and that paragraph right before section 10 looks like new buildings, and it could be expanded.
Correct. And the last PUD didn't limit it to the 3,200. However, if any expansion on the 3,200 is made from that 3,200 square feet, additional parking would have to be put in, and those kind of things. We sought to clarify some of that to allow expansion, but you still can't increase the maximum capacity of an event from the 300 without coming back here to rezone it. So, I mean, if they want to build another building, to include a greenhouse, they'd like the ability to do so, but it doesn't allow them to expand their event from 300.
That's 300 people?
Correct.
300 people. So
that's the maximum.
Is there any mention of the 3,200 square feet in this amended PUD?
It mentions it in the parking section, which is where we talked about before, I believe. So it talks about the event spaces defined as the existing barn.
What section is that?
9.6.
9.6.
And so it doesn't mention the 3,200 square feet, but it does define that as being the barn. And on the
All right. Okay.
Exhibit B, it does show barn event space 3,200 square feet.
Okay.
It's an 80 by 40.
All right. And so that paragraph before section 10, it just sort of opens it up to expansion of the event facility, but limited to 300 people.
We were just trying to basically describe there that, if they want to, build another building, that wouldn't be prohibited, whether it's for residential use or for the event, but it doesn't really expand the facility because you can't put any more people on there without coming here.
All right. Questions? I've got a question under section 7.3, water. Water facilities for this property are presently available from Deer Creek Rural Water Corporation. Is this based on your agreement with Deer Creek? Is it based on this being an event facility? They're providing water for an event, or is it for the residents?
It's on the event, it's not on the residents, but they need a separate meter, I guess, for...
You have clear understanding with Deer Creek that they're providing for your event center, for the water.
Right, we asked for water, and we told them what we were using it for. As a matter of fact, I guess somebody from the neighborhood called Deer Creek the other day, water, so we used it, and then...
Okay, good. Other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I would, Mr. Chairman, if you're done with questions, let me just, I don't have a question.
Oh.
I got a request from Mr. Spencer, and that being, I had discussed with Dr. Hahn the issue of whether parking spaces should be allowed in the private driveway, and I heard him say just a second ago he thought maybe they shouldn't, so maybe we ought to take out the sentence, the last sentence of paragraph 9.6.
We're good with that.
Okay.
Gretchen, are we allowed to edit this document as we go along?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak against this project? So come forward and identify yourself and what your relationship is to the project.
Hi, my name is Barry Cunningham, and I'm a resident in Summit Lake Estates. I'll try to stay away because I talk loud, which is directly to the east, I believe. I've got some handouts here. I don't know if anybody needs them, wants them, related to the presentation. You guys want them or not?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Sure, please.
Were you a party to this meeting with the...
Yes, sir, I was. Yes.
Thank you.
little bit of history. I know Mr. Martin wasn't here, just to kind of catch everybody up. So we obviously met September, so it would have been August. We did not have the luxury of meeting with the Hans, the group, to find out anything about the structure. We felt like we were kind of playing catch up last time. To kind of catch people up. We have met with the Hans. There's a group of us. They had a couple of different events. One was raining, didn't go. Had another one. So we have had a chance to kind of sit, ask some questions. And again, I have nothing against them. I don't think they have anything against me. I was the president of the HOA. I am now just representing the HOA on this behalf for this discussion. Michael and I have talked a few times in the past. Always had a good relationship. I mean, nothing bad. I don't think you had any bad things to say. I said, if you ever had any issues with Summit Lake, let me know. I'll do the best I can do to help you, and vice versa. So I think it's been a good relationship. Kind of where we are. I mean, I guess if you kind of look at things collectively, there are kind of 5 buckets or 5 categories, at least as I've been involved in these in the past and see this one. You guys talked a little about parking as one. And again, that's not an area that we really have a lot of, perspective on. Water sanitary was talked about. I know someone did call, and it was our understanding that Deer Creek Water just rainwater to the residents. I can't speak to that. I don't know, but I'm sure that's something they can get worked out. Sanitary, again, septic, again, that's areas you all know better than I do. Not going to speak to that in great detail. Lighting, relative to the first PUD, the one they have now, is satisfactory. They made some changes, tried to keep it away from us. I think we're okay with that. We have no concerns. That kind of leads us to traffic and noise, which obviously are the 2 biggest issues. We met, I guess last meeting was on, all meetings are on Thursday, correct? So 2 days after that, to Friday or Saturday, they had an event. I may be the only one that didn't know they were having an event. Maybe they talked, I don't recall him talking about it, saying, hey, we're having an event in 2 days. It'd be a great time to come witness and see what's going on. We kind of found out second-handedly, not that they have to notify us, it's not their responsibility to, but it would have been a good test, good litmus test, so to speak. I live, I'll borrow this, pointer, so I guess right there, well, the little red dot, you can see the red dot, that's me, the red dot. So I'm probably 1,800, 1,900 feet away. I can recite, I'm not a music aficionado, I can tell you the song that was played when she walked down to get married. I was outside, just like this, I could hear the song. It's a Beatles song. I don't like music, so I don't care. But I can. So, again, my point of that is the one thing that Michael has said, and I trust him, I do, and Mr. Martin, you kind of touched on it, I trust that he wants it to be, he wants the event center, and he also wants us to be happy. I do. I sincerely believe that. But I don't know that it can happen. It's the way it's structured, it can't. It just can't. I heard it. That would, in my opinion, if it were me, if I was up here trying, there were a bunch of protests, there were several, people came up and spoke, I would darn sure make sure the next event I had was flawless. I would think. I would do a really good job. So when I got in front of you guys, I said, hey, we had an event and it was great. And that's kind of what I heard, but it wasn't. It was fine. I'm sure it was a great wedding. I'm not trying to say anything negative about the facility itself, but I heard the music from my house. I love fireworks, so for me to get up here and say I don't want fireworks is kind of it's hard for me to do. But our neighborhood voted to not have fireworks, other than a couple of times a year. They did. I would love to live next to a place they test fireworks. That's fine. Give it to me all day. I don't mind personally, but our neighbors don't like it. They did the noise test, correct? If you look at this, there will be homes. There's a home, and one of the gentlemen here to speak is home 700 feet away. Not far at all. The tests that were done, the question I guess I had is the PUD changed to where all music is just going to be out of those 2 speakers inside? If that's the music, then that changes us a little bit, just from a noise concern. Not everything, but I didn't know if I didn't want to interject, but the test was a couple of speakers inside or 3 speakers inside. Is that all the sound that's going to be generated moving forward? That's my question.
The test was 6 speakers.
Okay, so the
4 speakers inside and 2 outside.
But that's all you guys are ever going to use ever again, are those speakers right there. So when a band comes, they're hooking up to those. Anything else is going through that? No. Okay, so bands are separate. Okay, I just want to clarify that, because that, again, is my point. I presume that the song I heard when she was walking down was a separate speaker. Is that correct?
That was the error, that they had the speakers directly towards you.
So, yes?
We've learned our lesson.
Okay.
Not placing any more speakers.
Okay. So it was the speaker that I heard was an outdoor event. It wasn't a band. It was just the music being played when she walks down. So you can assume a band is going to be a little bit louder. Mr. Shabby will speak to that. We did have to, again, one of the neighbors, we went to the event, went to the meeting with him, it was good. One of our neighbors just said, do we really care? We don't see him, we don't hear him, who cares? And that's true, who cares, right? We don't care. It's not our job to govern what they do or don't do on their land. If we don't hear it, don't care. That's the reason we hired Mr. Shadley, is kind of give us an idea. Tell us what could work. Again, you kind of see the distances here. So if you go to the next slide for me, if you would. Someone, or how do I do it? I can do it. Sorry. Just a pointer. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Would you clarify for me? I couldn't see the red dot. I'm looking at this one over here.
Okay, I'm still the red dot.
Tell me where you are.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I am right there. 22042 block.
Oh, I thought
on the red dot.
Using the red dot on the pointer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I started and I saw the red dot on the screen, so I stopped. My apologies. So yes, I am that red dot. So using Mr. Shadley's analysis, his recommendation, and this holds, and he'll speak to the details of it, but basically half a mile, 2,600 and some odd feet, an indoor venue. You shouldn't put anything, an indoor venue within 2,600 feet. So this is just a square radius, kind of sheets 2,600 square feet around. That encompasses most of Fossil Creek, which is to our north, almost everything of Summit Lake Estates, and then a portion of Mission Springs, which is to the south. Okay? You go to the next slide. Oh, me. Sorry. My apologies. Okay? The next slide, and again, part of, I know your all's intent, the easiest thing is for groups to get together and come and say, here's we agreed, it's easy. Sometimes we can't get there. The logical thing, and I think that's probably the wrong term to use, but it would have been great if they wanted to do this to come to us. They own that entire, and again, I know the couple of different ownership groups, but it's still, the primary owners are still involved with both. But if they would have moved that event center just on the western portion of that quarter section, we wouldn't hear anything. Probably wouldn't even be here. We might be here to make sure, but it wouldn't matter. So it's again, as I stated the first time, some of you all are here somewhere, but it's build it and then ask for forgiveness a little bit. I feel like that's what we're fighting. I do. I know that may not be their intent, but that's what we feel like. And this just displays, my point is, if it would have been planned a little different, you could have moved it, could have set it up on that western portion of that quarter section. Still within the range of their homes and all that, and we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. You can see it doesn't touch anything. Barely touches one house. He had talked about no similarities between the event center that was denied in Edmond and this one. I just disagree. If you look, and I'll try to do this for everybody, but the event center is going to be right here, okay? That's where the event center would be located. And then the housing addition is, 1,200 feet away. So further away than many of the homes that we're discussing here, has a dense amount of trees. I didn't go measure the trees by hand, but there's quite a bit of buffer, you would think, buffer there. And Mr. Shadley will speak to it. But again, going back to the what do we care if we don't hear it? A couple of things Mr. Shadley told me, and it makes sense after he explained it, but it takes over 100 feet depth, thick brush undercut to reduce the decibel level by 5, which is minimal, not substantial at all. The sun, time of day, wind, all those things are factors, influence the way sound is. So there may be nights, let's say we give them the green light. They get in there, they do it, we don't hear it. But there will be nights we do. There will be. There's no way to control that. The control mechanism I've heard, and this is nothing against him. Again, I've said that I would trust, and you touched on it, Mr. Martin. I'm going to be there every night. I'm going to make sure that it goes good. Well, we heard music on the last one. The fireworks went off later than what was advertised in the little pamphlet. Not substantially. It wasn't like hours later, but if it rained for 20 minutes, you think the bride's not going to want her fireworks show? Sure she is. And I would too. My wife would kill me if we didn't have it. So yes, and you can't control those things. He said he'll be there to help control it. He's a professional. He has other responsibilities. He's going to be on vacation. He's going to be sick. And someday he's not going to be around. Neither will I. That's the first one. So neither of us will be around. But that's not a control mechanism. Someone had asked the question, who monitors, who manages it, or who enforces it? Everything I've been told, it was the sheriff would be the first step. Mr. Martin, our experience, I expressed this to the group last time, is we have to the east of us, there is a neighborhood that's designed but not started development. There's a group living out there right now that knows the developer, and they have some rambunctious people, and they shoot guns a lot. We've had 2 neighbors move. They've had bullets hit their house. We've called the sheriff several times. You know what the sheriff finally said? Sorry. They're there to protect and serve. I don't enforce laws. Not that that's not a law, but they're law-abiding people. They're not there to worry about the Hans in their event center. They're not. And I don't want them to be. but that's not again, a fail-safe mechanism for us to enforce number of people, parking, any of those issues. I know the officer or sheriff, whomever spoke or on their behalf. Again, I wasn't there personally. We did have a group when they found out of it. They kind of stepped back and watched. There were a couple, at least two, they said, instances of people missing that turn coming down May. You can't see it. I took my wife down it 2 days ago at the fair. It is over a hill. It's crested. I understand they're going to put a little bit of lighting, but unless you put a lot of lighting, which is against what they want, the intent, you can't see it. I don't see it unreasonable at all to move, and I'll go to my next slide, and unreasonable at all for them to even consider moving the entrance 450 feet. It's the same ownership group. I understand there may be a different name, but you can carve out 5 acres, 2 acres, 3 acres, whatever the number would be. The engineer would figure it out more than I would. It's not substantial. There is an existing road there. I could drive it right now. If my car could go through the metal bollard or whatever it is, I could drive through it and go up all the way. I understand it may rain at times. It may flood. If it floods, we've got the alternative entrance. You use twice a year. So again, I think there's a lot of things that can be done that are reasonable, but they consider to be unreasonable. I know you've read them back and forth. I talked about it last time. The master plan, I mean, it speaks in here very clearly, protect the character of established neighborhoods. It does. Protect property values. I would argue, and ask every one of you all right here, if you were to buy a house, all things equal, would you prefer to buy one next to an event center or one away from it? If you moved into rural Oklahoma County. And I'll ask in the audience too. I would suspect every single person would say they would prefer to move to one not next to it, away from it. What's the same? We moved out there for a reason. He keeps saying he wants a rural theme. So do we. So do we. There's no tax benefit from it. It's a service business. You don't get taxed. There's going to be no tax revenue, no tax income coming into the schools, or very, very little. It's negligible. It doesn't matter. I'd like to find a way to make those paths meet. The only thing we've come up with, and again, some of my neighbors don't like me for this, but we want to try to obviously reach an agreement. I think we could get something done if it was an indoor event center. There's still risk with that. There is. Mr. Shadley would say 2,600 feet. If I go back on the slides, an indoor event center is 500 feet from an existing home, 800 feet from another home. You would have to have really, really strenuous restrictions on an inside event center. You'd have to move the parking and move the access to Coffee Creek. Reduce the fireworks. Again, we're in a neighborhood that doesn't want them at all. We do them a couple times a year. We do. I know a letter was sent to Mr. Vaughn. I presume he passed it out from a neighbor in Mission Springs, to the south of us. He was the second home in Mission Springs. So he was there before us. He was there before Mr. Hahn. He doesn't want any fireworks at all. We met with him. His name's Otto Neiman. You probably have his letter. I can give you a copy if you don't. He doesn't want them at all. When we were here last time, they said several things would be changed in the PUD. They modified it slightly. They have. I'm not saying they haven't listened, they haven't tried, but not near to the level of what we need. It's not. Trying to make sure I covered all my events, or all my items, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, again, I think there might be a way that we as the Summit Lake Estates HOA could maybe get something to work, but the way the PUD is written now is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And we would ask you all to support, again, what the master plan says and deny it unless it comes back changed and substantially changed. So I think Mr. Shadley is going to get up and speak. Unless you have questions for me, feel free, please.
Question.
Yes.
We met with the group?
Yes, sir.
With the bonnet?
Yes.
And mentioned the entrance on Coffee Creek?
Yes.
What was the response?
It's my understanding, and I'm going to speak again. Yes.
I saw
the picture. Yes, sir. Sure.
The meeting you had with him.
Yes. It was my understanding that Michael had a conversation with someone else in our neighborhood initially, and he was seemed open to it. I'm not trying to speak for you, but that was the interpretation maybe, and then maybe he looked at it and decided that it wasn't a good idea. That was what I was told. When we brought it up, I don't know that we brought it up in detail because I had never seen the place. So again, that was part of the problem is we didn't have a chance to see the place, talk to them, meet with them, learn about their preference, their intent, their purpose. We didn't have a chance. So that meeting after that is when we started, again, trying to put some, pencil to paper and figure things out. What truly can we hear or can we not hear? What are there other instances? Because that one coming on May is not safe. It's not.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can a driveway be built in a 500-year floodplain?
Well, there's already one there.
Okay.
I mean, I could drive, again, yes.
I guess what I would have to ask the proponents is, the concern was if we moved the driveway, will it be in a floodplain? Well, if it ever did flood, like Houston got flooded, you still have the alternative on May Avenue. But one that's driven that area out there on May Avenue, which carries more traffic than Coffee Creek, I think, and because of the topography out there,
yes,
and the hills, I mean, it's just getting more dangerous from a traffic control standpoint in the area because of the increased population and traffic. And then when we have cars, I mean, because down at Penn and, what is it, 178, wherever the Life Church is?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a smaller scale, but that's a good example of the kind of, when you have just a bunch of folks in. But anyway,
yes, sir.
I just can't understand not giving on the access off of Coffee Creek personally.
Are you asking me to respond to it?
That would be great.
I'm going back to your previous podcast.
All right, so we own outright the 40 acres. We own a minority interest in the remaining 410 acres, so we're not a majority owner. It floods from here to here, and it's not a 500-year floodplain, it's a 6-month floodplain. And so what they're asking is to build in a floodplain. I think it comes out to about 1,800 feet, put gravel or some hard-packed surface, and this is farmable land. And so this is at the nadir of the lowest point. Now, I understand their argument is this is the crest, and this is the nadir, but this is also the zenith. And so the same argument that they would have that would prevent us from creating this as being our primary entrance would also be the same argument that they should not have had an entrance here. I calculated. I set up a video on the barn, watched their neighborhood. With our last menu, we had 95 cars, 230 people, 95 cars, filming in the same time period from the cupola of this barn into their neighborhood, which I'm assuming something like two will be just as that big, right? 80 houses?
Yes, sir. A little bit, yeah.
388 people in the same period of time. So, not a mathematician, but 95 cars compared to 388 cars going in and out of their neighborhood on Coffee Creek. And the other thing is, May Avenue terminates, as you well know, 2 miles north of there. It's not a main thoroughfare. But I also noticed when I was filming the entrance and exits of the neighborhood, these huge trucks that I guess are gaining access from I-35 over to 74. I'm not sure, but we don't have those major trucks. We've also talked, we've agreed with the neighborhood that we're sending out maps. Let's just have people come up Coffee Creek. There's a stop sign right here, and then turn onto our property. And that way they're not at the bottom of the hill. Obviously, we can't direct traffic. But I also noticed by filming them all day, I'm happy to show you this video. It's about a 13-and-a-half-hour video. Is that cars get stopped on Coffee Creek going into their place. More cars stopped in preparation for going to their addition than they did in our venue. As you also may have seen, we plan to have and have had 2 Oklahoma County police officers at every event, and we're going to park them right there. I mean, it's for safety's sake, but if they're using this as an argument of it's too dangerous, then they shouldn't have built this right at the zenith of the hill. It's the same problem. And so it's not, in my opinion, it's not practical. It would be about a $200,000 issue just to build gravel, to set the land, to beautify it to where it would look decent. This is about a 6-month floodplain. In 2012, I think we had 5 times that this flooded. And the majority of it's because this is now a floodway. And I'd be happy to show you videos. We have a video here. Actually, a picture, I apologize. This is Coffee Creek. So you're wanting to see 4 feet in depth. This is May Avenue.
And when was that?
This, it's happened 4 or 5 times. I've got pictures of many times it happened as recently as May, and we had our last one. And so our 500-year floodplain is now a 6-month floodplain. This is Coffee Creek. So this is where they're wanting us to put our entrance. I don't think that's rational. I don't think it's reasonable. I mean, it's...
Could you have copies of those made and have them dated and give them to staff?
Yes.
So we have them.
We can... Well, we'll be able to show...
I mean, I'm not debating the floods, but once every 6 months, and then for an alternative, you have an alternative entrance.
When we say flood, it's like...
It floods. You can't go down the road. So I agree. I'm in complete agreement. It floods. You cannot. The road is closed. So when the road is closed, they have to use the alternative entrance. That's all we're suggesting.
Ma'am, would you mind coming up if you're going to be responding back and forth and identifying yourself and telling us what your
I'm
issue is?
Sharon Hahn. I'm Michael's wife, one of the owners. And it would, if we did spend a couple $100,000 putting in a beautiful landscape entrance right there, it would be underwater and completely destroyed 6 times a year. It is so bad. The flooding there is so bad. And also there, the pond in their neighborhood, it's called a retention pond. They keep it full, and it also completely floods into that same zone. And we're fine with the flooding, but we can't put a driveway there.
So, I mean, again, you go to repair the thing, because I could go drive it right now and drive right in. So, I mean, my point is that it probably does flood. It does flood. I'm not debating that. No one is. It hadn't flooded out. The road is there. Unless they've done work on it in the last 2 days, the road is there. It's accessible. It's passable. It is. 2 of the things I forgot to say real quick. I mean, I apologize. He had mentioned in relation to Saratoga Farms and one that was denied. It's not a private entrance. I mean, that's a private entrance to one home. That's the owner's home that developed Saratoga Farms. That's not the neighborhood entrance. Neighborhood entrance is off of Coffee Creek. We have a gated entry just like they do. It's identical. There's no difference. Other than ours is closer than that one. I mean, that's the difference. We're closer in proximity to that one. And that one also, the other thing I forgot to mention is that was predominantly an indoor event center. The intent was to have indoor events. This one wants both.
Any questions?
Other questions for me?
Questions?
Questions? Yes, sir.
Cunningham?
Yes, sir.
When you started your presentation, I heard you say that you had heard music during a wedding and you even knew the song and all that.
Luckily. I'm not a music guy, so yes.
Well, the Beatles, everybody. But I was under the impression that you had heard that since we were here last.
It was, yes. It was 2 days. So, and again, 2 days before the last event, we were all here doing this exact same thing. I may be the only one that walked out of here not knowing they had an event in 2 days. Maybe he told you all. I don't recall, which surprised me because one of my neighbors was like, "We're having an event." I'm like, "No, yes, we're having an event tomorrow." No, they would have said that and said, "Let's go test." I mean, that's a great time. Let's do it.
Okay. Well,
yes, sir. So, yeah, back to your, yes, it was 2 days after our last meeting.
My point was that I think that he had said that they made a mistake. He had a speaker pointed at the residences. Was that after we had our meeting last time?
Yes, that was an error. We didn't think about that after.
Got that. I was trying to get the picture
yes.
of when it occurred. Okay.
Yes, it was 2 days after we met last time.
All right. Have you had any events since that time? Okay. If it's amplified, I can understand why you might have heard it.
Yeah, and that's why we're asking. I mean, nothing outside amplified. It can't be.
Well, but what about if his proposal was to have outside music amplified, but face it to the west?
And Mr. Shadley will speak to it, but if the wind blows, when it's night, it travels differently. It does. It's 500 feet. It's a 7-iron away. In golf terms, it's not far.
Okay.
It's not. Other questions I can answer?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cunningham.
I've been called worse. Mr. Shadley, you want to speak?
Yeah. Does anyone else like to speak?
My name is John Shadley. I'm an acoustical consultant living in Tulsa. I have been hired by the Summit Lake Estates Homeowners Association to look into the possibility of problems with noise coming from the event center. And I came here and made some background measurements in a number of backyards, front yards of homes in Summit Lake Estates. And also we toured around and looked at the in the neighborhoods. Also we were okay, thank you. Also we looked around up on May Avenue and looked down upon the development, and we then I had some conversation. I had a telephone conversation with Michael Bond about it. Lasted a long time, maybe 55 minutes. He filled me in on the construction of the building that is there right now, and also on some points about the terrain surrounding the event center, and so we had a good conversation. And then I wrote a letter. I sent it to Barry Cunningham, who I'd been working with, and with the Summit Lake Estates Homeowners Association. And and maybe some of you have read that, and I hope so. I want to make just a few remarks, and also then I would be happy to answer questions. I have my remarks in two organized in two parts. The first part is the indoor events, and the second part is the outdoor events. Concerning indoor events, I think it's easy to not realize how loud a band can actually be. It's huge. And the low frequency, we'll find out as I talk, is the main bad guy in this whole thing is low frequency sound. Why is that bad? Because it has the ability to get through barriers and walls and windows where higher frequencies don't. It has the ability to propagate along terrains without being so modified as maybe the high frequencies and the low frequency do. So keep in mind that as far as the building itself and indoor events, it's the low frequency sound that is the culprit. Well, my analysis suggests that if a really loud band is playing in the event center building, that people are going to hear it. And it's going to be the low, and they're not going to hear music, they're not going to hear tunes you can recognize. You're going to hear low frequency sound, which is mainly the sound of the bass guitar. And I know you've heard it thumping along the way from time to time when you're listening to some young man's idea of good music, and he's sharing it with you at the stoplight. But truly, I think there should not be a problem with noise in the community if the owner, the manager of the event center could exercise some discretion in the types of bands that they allow to perform there in the event center. You don't have to have loud banging bands in the event center. There are plenty of bands that are good bands that would rather emphasize good music than how loud they are, number one. And number two, The instruments that are really responsible for the low frequency noise that can be a problem are the bass guitar, the organ, the keyboard, and the male voice, amplified male voice. So I would ask also that the managers of the event center would keep an ear to the bass instruments and keep the low frequency noise from building up and becoming a problem. So I have no problem with those comments. I have no problem with indoor events or the event center building it is now constructed. Outdoor events, I think, are different. I think it's hard to realize how far sound travels. And it's hard to picture really how close some of the homes are to the event center. Where I made a measurement of the background noise was 700 feet away. Now, 700 feet away is almost exactly 2 football fields laid end to end. That's it. Now, I want you to do a kind of a thought experiment with me. In this experiment, we have a stadium that has 2 football fields in it, end to end. And there's no anything going on in the field right away, but there's some people in the stands. And you're at one end of these 2 football fields, and I'm at the other, and I call to you, can you hear me? Could you hear me? Could you hear me under those circumstances? You know, probably not. But you can't say for sure, because whether you hear me depends on 3 factors. One is how loud I'm hollering, number 1. Well, that's like the loud bands, not so loud bands thing, right? How loud I'm hollering. Also, what is between me and you? And, for example, could be trees and could be other kinds of vegetation. But I have to say that sound is not very much influenced by trees and vegetation unless the trees are packed very closely together and the vegetation beneath is abundant. The other thing that we could consider would be maybe there's a wall there between us, or maybe there's a berm of soil, of earth. And it's true that certainly walls and berms of earth can influence propagating sound, but their influence is mostly high frequency sounds, high pitches, mid-frequency sounds, but it does very little to influence low-frequency sound propagation. Now, the third item is, what is your, standing at the other end of the 2 football fields, what is your background noise? Right now, it's kind of high if there's people in the stadium and they're talking and laughing and having a good time and you don't hear me. But let's consider what happens at night. Everybody goes home, nobody's in the stands. What you hear is highway noise from some distant highway. Crickets. Your background noise is very low, like it is right here in Summit Lake Estates, very low at night. Now, it's it's at night, so let's turn the stadium lights off. It's dark. It's quiet at your end. I'm at the other end of just 2 football fields, and I holler, can you hear me? What do you think? I'm saying, yeah, you're going to hear me. You may even be able to tell, hey, that's John, I recognize his voice. That's how close some of these are. That is why it's a problem for outdoor activities. My recommendation is that there should be no amplified instruments allowed in outdoor events. Amplified meaning including the voice. No amplified instruments. I don't want any bass guitars with their jacked up amplitudes, and I don't want any bass drums either, although I didn't specify as an amplified instrument. No bass drum, no amplified bass guitar. You want to have a stand-up bass? Okay, that's okay. You can't increase the volume on that. Violins, flutes, okay, all those. Nothing amplified. And that would include music that is coming out of speakers into the space outdoors. Outside, I would say, somebody mentioned, what if a preacher wants to say a few words at a wedding or something? And so I'm saying, okay, maybe we would allow that, but he would have a microphone, there would be an amplifier and a loudspeaker, but we don't want to exceed 70 decibels at a distance of 20 feet from the speaker. That means that this preacher's going to reach everybody, but it's not going to propagate over into the homes in Summit Lake Estates. As far as nighttime events, no, I would say no. My recommendation is no outdoor events in evening hours, night hours, evening and night. That's my recommendation. So I could ask if there's any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
I haven't seen this report. I would really kind of like to see it.
All right. How can he get a copy of the report? There's the whole stuff.
I mean, low frequencies are used to send super secret messages to submarines way down all the time. So I understand they travel.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm Mr. Vaughn. I called you yesterday.
Mr. Vaughn, nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you. I thoroughly enjoyed your report. I found it interesting and enlightening. So appreciate you coming today to
My pleasure.
Address it and answer questions.
Any further requests or questions?
Not of Mr. Shadley, but I have a few questions of staff.
Mr. Shadley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have some questions?
Well, I mean, Dusty and I live in the same neighborhood, and is there a county statute, or, I mean, we're all in the county and fireworks are legal, but is there any statute that says how many decibels is what do I want to say, an obnoxious, an annoyance, a reason to call, nuisance, reason to call the county sheriff, or
exact numbers yet, but there is a nuisance section, page 109, in your regulations.
You guys are just too sharp.
You thought we might ask this question?
Okay.
Are you, do you know what the numbers are? No, the numbers, okay, sorry, I didn't read it. No.
Yeah, we're looking at it.
Pretty low.
I understand everyone's concern here. I just don't know whether, how that relates to what is, I guess you'd say law, or statute, I'll say statute. We can't necessarily do anything less than that, can we? We can recommend it, but.
No, under 9C, community sound level standards. CLCG, CH, CR, or commercial areas in PUD, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 60, and then 70, and I'm not sure what these. Percentile sound level limit.
Mr. Shadley could,
Yeah, and then from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., 55 and 65.
We would be within our right as a commission to refer to this standard to be followed.
I would take it a step further and have them incorporated in the PUD.
Okay. That's
be required.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Shadley is more of an expert on what those numbers mean.
But Tyler, would you look over his shoulder and ensure that the PUD at issue would fall into that second category?
The CLCG, CH
Yes.
portion?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, will you point to that for him, because he's not going to be familiar with your designation.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yes, percentile sound level limits, yes. The first one there, 60 L90, means that is 60 decibels is the level that is exceeded 90% of the time. So 90% of the time, of whatever time segment this is, 90% of the time, the level exceeds 60. The L10 showing 70 means that 10% of the time the level has exceeded 70.
Are these allowable levels, sir? As far as you
I would think so. Limits, yes, called limits, yes. The only thing they don't tell me whether these are DBA, A-weighted sound levels. You may, is it somewhere?
And the ends is standard there.
Okay, but it still doesn't say whether they're A weighting, I just.
All right, well, there's another interesting provision in this same regulation just beneath it. It says sound levels projected from one zoning district, and a PUD is going to be a zoning district, into a zoning district which has lower limits for sound levels as indicated in the table, which they're looking at right now, shall not exceed the limit shown for the district with the lower limit. So the PUD can be further limited that they should not project sound into the other zoning districts, which would be your residential area, with the lower limit. So the lower limit would come into play.
mentioned, Article 5, 9.c as their guide, is that right? Or their standard?
Well, I think for ease of application, if I were a property owner subject to a PUD, I'd be carrying around my PUD statement and not the county zoning regulations. So I would actually move the provisions of these requirements into my PUD.
All right. Gentlemen, are you hearing this?
I have to comment, if you don't mind. What we were looking at just then were commercial areas. Is that right? Places located in commercial areas. Is that how you read that?
Correct. But there's a further statement below, sir, which says you can't project the sound from that proposed PUD into a residential area. So actually, they could not project sound into the residential areas according to the limits in the top part that begins RA, RSC,
yes.
RD, RM.
Right, I see it, yes.
So it would be a lower standard.
Or higher?
I mean, yes, a higher standard. A lower number, higher standard. Thank you.
I got to make a comment on that if you will allow.
Well, I'm not sure that comment would on whether or not you agree with this. If this is the standard that we have to go by.
Okay, I understand.
The standard we have to go by.
Understand.
Appreciate your comment.
All right, thank you. Do you need me for anything else right now?
Not right now. Thank you very much. Did all of you commissioners understand what we just did? We're going to request that they take these 9C1 and 2 and incorporate it into their statement. Their
PUD.
Yeah.
You know, it carries over onto the next page. 3 talks about sound level measurement.
It also has an extension.
Yeah, and then it says reduced by 5 decibels. I mean, that would be carried, that from 2D carried over to the next page, reduced by 5 decibels. So I guess it would be 9C, 1, 2, and 3.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question. Decibel sound levels are above my pay grade. Okay? What I would like someone to, and maybe our expert here could address it, or someone else, but at a 70 percentile sound level in eastern Oklahoma, what kind of noise would that be? What would I be hearing? Versus a 55.
Well,
what?
Yeah. When Mr. Cunningham was talking, he was talking at 70 decibels.
Yeah.
But any oil well you hear operating at night is, I am assuming, bad word, that is within the guidelines that we have. And in Deer Creek Farms, we have an operating well next door, and there were grilling next door. So I don't know. That was sort of a statement with a question embedded in it that I assumed, and I said that. Yeah, it sounded louder than I would have liked, but I was told that we couldn't do anything about it.
Well, that's because we can't regulate the oil and gas industry.
They have an exemption, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's why we can't do anything about them.
Because it probably exceeds these levels.
You'll be glad to know that all other uses, though, are regulated by the county engineer and enforced. It says it right there.
But,
you're the enforcement.
But once again, My question is this, currently, like the event, Mr. Hahn, that y'all had?
Yeah.
And if your speakers were pointed to the west?
Correct.
And let's first talk about indoors. What would be the decibel level being heard by the neighboring areas?
Well, when I did my experiment, we've gotten up to 75 here today. When I went up, pardon? That was just, I mean, us talking in here. It's at 75, and so we'd all be illegal under this.
Well, but it's over a period of time.
But it's a peak, though, and I think Mr. Sadler will say it's not just one boom, it's just constant boom, and so we've gone over it several different times. But when I took it out to the road, we had even wind noise. It was 40. But the most important aspect is I've asked the neighbors to come over on 4 separate occasions. We can pontificate till the cows come home, but the real world experience, I wanted to bring them over as a real world experiment, turn up the stereo all the way, and let's go back to their neighborhood, and they weren't willing to do that.
No, that's not true.
Gary, that is true. Hold on, I thought I had to.
Gentlemen,
Interrupted us.
Well, I was asked to come up there.
Sir, I'll call on you.
Okay, thank you.
But, I mean, there again, we don't want to be loud. And that's why I wanted to do that experiment, because if it is loud, we shouldn't do it. I mean, we shouldn't. And I would agree. I'm in heated agreement with the neighborhood in that regard.
But what I'm confused about is if he could hear that Beatles song.
Well, that was the speaker aimed towards him.
Okay. If he could hear that, though, was that exceeding the sound level?
No. I'll bet you it wasn't. I will bet money, marble, or chalk that it was not.
So even with the sound level, he could still be hearing next week's wedding music.
Just like I can hear them mowing their lawns on the weekends, just like I can hear the construction right across the street, just like I can hear them when I'm on my hill. There's a big hill. Everybody's failed to mention the elevation changes. These closest houses that are there are actually almost 20 feet under May Avenue. And so I know that I disagree. I mean, sound I don't think travels through earth well. And we've gone over there on May Avenue. If I can't hear it on May, how are they going to hear it below there? And if they do, let's do something different. If this is a loud venue, I don't want to have it. There's no reason to upset neighbors. I mean, I would even be so. I mean, if this commission says, you know what, let's just make it an inside venue. Let's not have any outside bands. I'm willing to give on these things. If I went over there and heard that, I wouldn't want it either, and I'm willing to put that in the PUD. If we need to make this just an inside venue, I'm okay with that. And honestly, that's what I would prefer. But you know, I also have the opposite. If we go over there and we have a band playing and it's facing west, a reasonable band, not probably a heavy metal band, but a reasonable band, then, and we can't hear it, I think we should be allowed to do it. And
Are you talking outside?
I'm talking outside. Hear me out. If we had a band, it's the practicality of it. If you can't hear it, or somebody with better hearing than us, is it a problem? If they can't hear it. And so I hate to restrict ourselves from a point that may be moot. But if they can, I don't think we should do it. We shouldn't have it in the PUD.
Mr. Chairman, I want to hear more from the listeners.
Just real quick, I just want to respond. We have not met.
Identify yourself.
Barry Cunningham. Barry Cunningham.
We're taping this.
Okay, sorry. Barry Cunningham, 22042 Black Walnut Circle, Summit Lake Estates.
Probably 80 decibels right there.
Yes. We have not met with, we've met with them. We have not done a band outside sound test. We have not. We had a couple of days ago a time to set up when Mr. Shattuck was going to come with Mr. Hahn, and there was a scheduling issue. So it's not like we've avoided. We haven't. Mr. Shattuck said you can go listen all day in the day. The sun matters. The wind matters. Sound, as he mentioned when he's up here, is at night it's more quiet. So sound travels further. It does. There's not as much background noise. So it matters. There has been, again, as I mentioned, 2 days after the last time I was here, there was an event. Guess who heard it? I did. Standing on my front porch with I didn't have the earphones on or microphone or what I don't know what it's called, earphones I guess or something. I heard it. I can tell you the song. I heard it.
We said all this.
Yes, no, I know we did. That's my point. So we've been there. Yes, sir. I agree. We've had the test.
Is there someone else who would like to speak? Someone do the
afternoon. My name's Todd Gibson. I live in Summit Lake Estates. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm not even sure really where to start. My frustration level is about through the roof, but I have been enlightened and certainly appreciate the commission here and what you all do. I had no idea, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll try to make this go as quickly as possible and as simple as possible. I live at 21986 Black Walnut Circle. I'm here to try to protect my investment, just like the Hans are here to try to protect their investment. My investment is our home. Like most of us, our homes are our largest investment. We're in the process of building another house in phase 2 of Summit Lakes. We like it so much in this area, we decided to build a house and stay out in this area for several reasons. We used to live a little bit closer to downtown Oklahoma City, moved out to the northwest part of Oklahoma City, Edmond area, for a few reasons, but particularly to have a little peace and quiet, what most people expect when they live in an area like this. I understand I'm the small guy here, probably not going to win this argument or this battle, but I at least have to say something to try to protect my investments. And that's what it is. It's very simple to me. It's my investment and their investment, and they have a lot of money invested. And I don't think we would actually be sitting here today having this talk if it wasn't for my understanding the shutdown of the event center to go through this process. They were well on their way to going through this process, and I'm not sure how much money was spent to get to this point. Maybe they could clarify, but let's not act like this is a development that's waiting to open. I'd like to clarify a couple things real quick. It's been referred to as a wedding venue. That is not true. I believe in the PUD there's other items listed, everything from a farmer's market to special events and weddings. Is that correct? Am I leaving any out? Okay. Has it been modified? Okay. It's everything. Okay. It's not? I'm open. I'm just...
If it is a question, I can identify myself.
Okay, identify yourself.
My name is Robert Sheets. I am an attorney that's helping the Hans with PUD. Also, my son got married out there back in June of 2016. It wasn't built as an event center, it was built as a barn. It just turned out, the wedding between my son and their daughter turned out so well, they thought it would make a nice area for weddings. But the PUD has been modified. The events are weddings, holiday parties, birthday parties, office parties, school parties, charitable events, reunions, organization dinners, and picnics. That's the list. That's what the events are. I don't think there's any event there that the landowner or the owners of homes over in the other subdivision couldn't do on their own without zoning. The only thing that is different in this is they would like to charge a fee for people to come in and have the event. But the events are something that is done normally in a home. I mean, I've had most of these things in my own home. So, that's clarification, and that's when it's limited. Thank you, Mr. Chief.
Thank you, sir. the last bullet point there is agricultural sales to include the sale of produce and crops. I'm not sure what that means, but the previous PUD, I believe, had farmers market. I'll let someone else clarify. I believe it was referred the potential of a greenhouse was going to be built. My understanding is this dirt has been moved and possibly surveyed and it's ready to go. Is that correct?
Absolutely incorrect.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what the dirt and land is that faces May?
I don't know where you're facing, but we have a lagoon, that we do not have a greenhouse, we haven't had it platted, we haven't had a survey, we've not had a bid on it, nor have we moved any dirt for a greenhouse. If you've seen, I'm sure you've seen the overhead, we have a garden.
Doctor, would you come forward?
Sorry.
We're not recording this.
He's asking if we've done anything, I guess, proactively to build a greenhouse. Is that correct?
Correct. And what is the area where the dirt is totally flat?
That's a lagoon, and so our produce was actually bamboo. That is a tree farm. You've seen the rows of trees. And honestly, we only want to do a farmer's market that's good for the neighborhood across the street. I love farmer's markets. And I said, if you guys wanted one, we could do one. If you don't, let's not. Let's take it off the slate right now. That's not a big selling point. But we have not moved any dirt. Our plan is to put a greenhouse, mainly for our own personal use, right next to the garden, which I'm sure you've seen overheads of. It looks like a funeral plot, but it's a garden. And so,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To help my commissioners tonight, you're objecting to greenhouse, is that correct?
I'm objecting to the entire event center. I was just trying to clarify a few things that I thought might have been discrepancies, and I apologize if they weren't. So, simply in conclusion, I would hope, being enlightened on what this commission does to protect homeowners, and the words to me, a reasonable expectation of development, would maybe come into mind in this situation, and I simply don't think this is a reasonable expectation of development to set this directly across the street from an area that is rural and people move out to for a certain way of life. If you would like, there was the event that was held after August the 19th, or I believe it was on August 19th, after this meeting, and I think a couple have alluded to the fact that maybe they would be on their best behavior and show this as an example of how we're going to do things going forward. We've got a recording from our driveway on Black Walnut Circle of the firework display and the noise. It's 4 minutes and probably 10 seconds. If you guys would like to hear, I can hold this up to the microphone. Would that be okay? I don't have to play the entire thing.
Yes, go ahead.
What are we hearing?
Explain to us what we're hearing.
Oh, okay.
This is the event that was held after the last meeting, 2 days after.
The one where he heard the wedding song?
Correct.
Okay.
Just going to show this to where he can just show where he lives. Sorry. So he's
I'm at the 1,350 feet currently, and building another property on the other side. $10:50 at night. all we need is love.
My name is Jim Benson. I'm vice chairman of this commission. Mr. Jones had to leave for a few moments, so I will be at the chair. Does anyone need to hear any more of the evidence that we have in front of us?
No.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just make a comment to the gentleman that just spoke. And this is important for everybody in this room. This is important for everybody in this room that I would assume most own property in this county. And it is an investment. But by the same token, as I referred to a while ago, I moved to a Deer Creek School District to raise 4 kids in a small school environment. And in 10 years, I saw a school district go from 10,000 in population to 30,000 in a 10-year period, from a 2A school to a 6A school today. My point is this: in utopia, you and I maybe could have the same thing. Move out for peace and quiet, no oil wells next to us, cows instead of oil wells. But realistically, that's not the world we live in. So we as a planning commission, and Commissioner Vaughn and his other 2 commissioners, have really difficult public policy issues to deal with when it comes to things like this. And there needs to be civility, which we have, and an understanding of achieving that one thing that was protecting the characteristic of the neighborhood, but at the same time not denying a private property owner the right to utilize their property so that we can somehow coexist. So I hope that you keep that in mind as we're up here struggling with this issue.
I certainly will, and we have 2 children in the Deer Creek School, and the same reason we moved up that way. So I certainly appreciate it. I know you guys have a tough job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Are you waiting to speak, sir?
We'll make it very brief.
Come up and identify yourself.
I certainly will. My name is Doug Swartz, better known as the unfortunate Mr. 500 Feet. And I'm not going to rehash pros and cons, rights and wrongs. Property owners can have a right. We understand, and I applaud. You guys have a tough job. But what I have seen and heard today is a lot of uncertainty. So much uncertainty, I think it would be a travesty to approve this today. I'm of the opinion it should not be approved at all. Mr. Martin highlighted earlier the question, and again, this is new grounds, and I know it's a tough thing you guys are dealing with. I corresponded with Commissioner Vaughn, and my wife thinks I'm sometimes pessimistic. I tell her I'm a realist. I'm in the business community. I used to be in public accounting. I've seen all kinds of deals in just beautiful documents. Yes, beautiful documents. But when we get down to the nuts of it, what are the ramifications if we choose to ignore that beautiful document? I've never met the Vaughns. I'm sure they're excellent people. The question that came up earlier, even if they have no intent to do anything other than be totally neighborly, What happens when they sell it? What happens when you guys make this decision to open this up? I hadn't even pondered the future development of the available acreage. But when it comes down to it, and you asked the question, and this is no fault because it maybe has never come up, who do we call when there's a violation? What is the ramification? What is the first offense? What is the second offense? And ultimately, what is the worst thing that can happen? And again, I'm not going to say to Mr. Vaughn, I'm going to assume the next owner. He's going to be the bad guy, okay? So, if the worst offense is a $500 fine or citation, and the next one is $1,000, but ultimately, that's how it's written because, again, when the master agreement or whatever the governing document is, we didn't ponder this scenario. I shared with Commissioner Vaughn, it's pretty simple. If I'm the guy, well, young couple about to come have a facility usage and have your wedding here, we have two price options. It's $3,500. You get 5 minutes of fireworks. We got to turn the music off at 10:45. But we also have option B. We party our night, and we shoot fireworks until every cop shows up. And that is $3,500 plus the maximum fine we will face. So I ask, what is that maximum fine? And this comes back to me being not a pessimist, but a realist. I don't care how perfect their putt is. And again, I have nothing against them. I've never met them. We are building our dream home right there. I promise you, if we would have known about this, we absolutely would not have. This final sentence says, planned unit development to develop and operate. It's already developed. It's already been operating. The cart and the horse are out of whack. And I'm coming in on this deal late. And I appreciate my neighbor-to-be who met us one time, saw my 3 little boys, met my lovely wife, and knew we were building our dream house right there. And she said, oh my God, the Schwartzes are going to have their windows rattled. So again, this isn't about me, but this is a real life specific example of one family among many families that's going to be impacted. The very final thing I want to say, and quite honestly I'm surprised they gave as many examples, and I shared this with Commissioner Vaughn. Weddings, we're hung up on these weddings. They're on the weekend. Oh, you can be cool, chill out, have a little part, have a little fun, listen to some music in your backyard on the weddings, but it's all the other events. Corporate events, foundation. We have all probably participated in a very nice blue tie gala or a very nice fundraiser for all these wonderful charities that we serve on the boards of. Those all happen on school nights. Those all happen, except during the summertime, that's on a school night. Every one of those houses have kids. They're going to have music. They're going to have bands. And again, we're hung up on the music, which I have no doubt. Again, and that's where I come back to, what is the true penalty or citation if they choose just to, you know what, tonight this is for whatever the favorite charity. We're going to just let the rule slide because this is for the one agency that this is their big corporate, their big campaign. It's got to be a blowout. We'll let that go. So again, I'm requesting complete denial. I understand it's a tough decision. And I shared with Commissioner Vaughn, I don't want to be naive about the number of additional drunk drivers leaving these events. And we can't say it's not going to happen. And I don't care about the licensed bartender. Every drunk driver gets served ultimately at a facility that's got their legal liquor license, licensed bartenders, Again, I realize you have a very tough decision to make, but I think the fact that we saw the other one denied in Edmond, I think to approve this will open up future, more challenging requests for you guys down the road. So I respectfully request that you deny it. I certainly would answer any questions you might have. I'm not going to say put yourself in my shoe. What if I was your son, your nephew, whatever. But these are real families with kids trying to go to bed, trying to go to school. We all know there's different dynamics with families. Why bring all this additional noise pollution, traffic, potential for drunk drivers? I think you get the point. Appreciate the time. Any questions?
Thank you very much, sir. Do you have any questions, commissioners? Anyone else like to speak?
Mr. Noise expert would just like to explain the last portion of his statement in regards to the noise regulation, if he could.
In regard to the regulation that we were looking at on 109?
He made a statement and he didn't complete it, and he wanted to complete it now. You need to, you actually need to pay your
I just wanted to say that if the outcome of this investigation were to legally allow the levels that are in that document, it would be a terrible thing. And let me say why. I think I remember that the nighttime allowable for L90 was 55 decibels. Right now, the background sound, the ambient sound that these folks have in their backyards, in their front yards, at the pool, that when they sit down in the evening and relax and chat with their spouse, have a sip of margarita, I don't know, but we're just relaxing. Right now, that's 35 decibels. So that would mean would legalize a sound or sounds to be 20 decibels higher than that 90% of the time. That truly, I'm telling you, is going to wreak havoc. Everybody will be suing. And even the L10 is allowed to be 60. Really, that would be just a terrible, terrible thing if that happened.
Thank you, sir, very much. Well, Gretchen, as I read this document, the C9C, these are the levels that are currently allowed in each one of these zones. It's not that we're setting something new. We're just, these are that in Summit. The current level is what the acoustic consultant has just quoted. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
You know, that's not to say that regulation could not be amended in the future at some point. No. In which case you want the PUD to reflect the current regulations and not recite something higher. Now that he's articulated in that regard. I don't know if he clearly stated whether or not what he thought the upper range of these limits would be if the event took place with music completely indoors. What he projected that decibel level, how it would affect the neighbors. I don't know if he said that, but because you concentrated on outside. The applicant mentioned he didn't like it, but he might consider just seating to completely indoor music. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Mr. Chairman, could we not, I would like to know how our regulations compare to City of Oklahoma City, City of Edmond. Are they gonna be the same with regard to these sound levels?
In answer to your question, you've got to remember, our regulation is dated 2008. I know for sure that ANSI standards change from time to time, and that's what that is based on. And our master plan and our regulations are not changed every year. They probably should be, but these could be out of date with the ANSI standards.
My concern is if the fiscal expert is correct,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm not sure we solved anything.
That's true.
Even with having the, and I appreciate Mr. Hahn, Dr. Hahn, option of thinking about having an indoor facility. I mean, I respect that. But once again, I'm just curious about now the decibel levels.
Yeah.
If they're really still in date.
Yeah.
And
Well, we can put an agenda item on for that in the future. We really shouldn't be discussing whether or not our regulations should be amended under this agenda item.
Generally, though, if we change a regulation, those who have had something approved are grandfathered.
Well, you could put in the PUD that it would.
No, not this PUD. We have okayed another PUD that is a wedding venue. You know, I go by it every day.
No, I think if your regulations change, they will change in the future.
To just the future, not to the past.
No, I think that if anybody,
Everybody
no
is,
matter
everyone.
when, is going to be subject to these
Okay,
regulations.
that's what I wanted to make
In
sure.
their current form.
Because we're
not the
affecting
past form.
a lot of other people, should we do this?
All right. Any other,
A quick question, I just wanna, so.
if you need to speak, right here, please.
I guess it's a question for Gretchen, just clarification. So, if I understood you correctly, based on at least everybody's knowledge at this point, I'm not saying it's wrong, but everybody's kind of playing catch up maybe on the decibel discussion, is the decibel level in Summit Lake Estates is the same decibel level that is currently applied to a commercial PUD. Is that an accurate statement?
No.
No, okay. Can you help clarify then? I apologize, that's my mistake, that's what I want to understand the difference.
What the current regulations state is that no one can project a sound level greater into a different zoning area.
Okay,
So
in
if the zoning area is residential, they're going to have the most stringent noise regulations, and no one can exceed that.
Okay. And those,
And in that subdivision?
and or beyond, okay? And those limits are what? Make sure I understand, I'm sorry.
7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 55 to 65, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., 50 to 60.
So 55 to 65 decibels. That's what's allowed in Summit Lake Estates. So therefore, if I'm understanding you right, that's what you would say would apply to the PUD. Nothing greater than that.
reduced by 5 decibels, because if you go to the next page there, page 110. Because for any stationary sound source which emits impulsive sound, the limits in sound levels indicated in the table, Article 59C1 above, shall be reduced by 5 decibels. So it just limits it a little bit more.
You all have the ability to limit it more within the PUD.
No.
You can. So it's a yes/no, basically. It's a question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's a question.
I think we're trying to then rewrite law.
Okay.
Our statute.
Yeah, you can amend your zoning regulations.
We can't do it here.
And not now. We can suggest that the corporate commissioners do.
Thank you very much.
But you could, I guess, within the PUD, limit the noise to be inside, or the events, as Mr. Hahn suggested, possibly inside. That's something you could do within the PUD, correct?
He's offered you.
No, I mean, I'm asking if I'm looking at you all, though, too, doesn't always matter what he and I think, so, no, I mean, yeah.
I think you have the right to alter the PUD however you want to, and try to get it approved. You want to do that?
Identify yourself.
Jason Spencer with Crafton Toll on behalf of the applicant. So, I mean, based on what we've heard, we will definitely agree to meeting the current noise ordinance that's in the county ordinance. We're willing to stipulate that in the PUD, and, you know, rather, I guess, than putting that, spelling it out, we'll say that we'll meet the current ordinance. So if it comes back from the powers that be and decides that it's out of date and needs to be changed, then it would still apply to us. We're also willing to limit the amplified music and bands to being indoors. I think the only stipulation I have is we would ask that for an outdoor ceremony, the ability to have a narrator on a microphone if needed, but still meet that noise ordinance level.
All right, thank you very much. Now, question to you commissioners, do we want them to submit another design statement with what they agreed to for us to consider?
I'm going to make a motion.
All right, you make a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we defer this item.
I'm going to make a motion that we defer this item until we have a chance to review the sound levels that the City of Oklahoma City and City of Edmond have in their zoning ordinances. And if anyone's welcome to second it, but that's just where I'm at, because I'm a little bit concerned that we have in our current zoning regulations some outdated characteristics that might not be appropriate for areas that are becoming more populated.
Jason Spencer with Crafton Toll again. That we would prefer not to defer the item. We don't feel that that's a direct effect of our PUD. We're willing to stipulate that if you change your zoning ordinance, that we'll meet the updated zoning ordinance, but delaying us at the point that that's changed doesn't seem fair. We would also ask, I mean, if we can list the defined items and move forward today rather than submitting a clean PUD, if that's possible.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Can I second? That was a joke. Seconded.
Gentlemen and ladies, do I hear a motion to either approve or deny with stipulations? And are you willing to list those stipulations?
I'd like to take a stab at it.
All right.
Okay, but he's made a motion, so I don't know how that works.
Yes, okay. Is there a second to? Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing none, your motion has died. Do I hear another motion?
I'd like to make a motion, let's see if I can word it correctly, to approve based on the stipulations that Mr. Hahn make certain changes to the PUD. One of them that I have marked is on 9.6 on the parking regulations, that you strike the phrase, the parking spaces within the private driveway primary residence may be counted towards the minimum number of required parking spaces within this PUD. And also, the verbiage that the PUD would be amended or revised to include the current Oklahoma County zoning regulations 9C 1, 2, and 3. And those regulations would be upheld if the zoning regulations change on those measurements. I would also like to have the comment where we're talking about outdoor music and bands. I would change the PUD to say to drop music speakers and put bands with no speakers and amplification are stopped no later than 9:00 p.m. And strike further down, a greenhouse is proposed. And strike on the uses. Are you still with me?
Doing all right?
Strike on the uses, agricultural sales to include the sale of produce and crops. That eliminates the farmer's market aspect of it. So that is the motion that I made. Approve based on those changes.
I'll ask for comments after we've had. Yes, ma'am.
On the outdoor.
Amplified.
Just on the outdoor music.
Amplified music outside.
That there be no speakers and amplification. I mean, there's chamber music. There's all kinds of music that can be played without amplification and no speakers, without shutting down outdoor music altogether. So amplified, no speakers and amplification. Yes. Well, you know, it's the same terminology here, Sunday through Thursday and 10:45, Friday and Saturday. That could be okay, just no speakers and amplification.
As an Oklahoma master gardener, I would maybe ask that you change the greenhouse rule to be, I don't know what you want to call it, but recreational, non-commercial. He may not make a commercial greenhouse.
Yes, I'm for that. To say
okay.
Because he should be able to put a greenhouse if he wants. It's not a commercial greenhouse.
Can I make the comment?
Is there a second to this? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Martini, can you read that for us? Good luck.
Martini, do you mind going to the mic? I'm sorry. Or the microphone. I'll give you a mic.
Oh, okay. Ms. Martin motion, she wants to strike the phrase for using the private drive for parking. She wants to include the current zoning regulations, and if those zoning regulations are amended, to also amend the PUD. Strike outdoor amplified music. Can keep the greenhouse, but it needs to be stated that it will not be a commercial greenhouse. And strike all agricultural sales of produce and crops.
There was a time limit on that all right. Wasn't there?
No, it's listed on the PUD as it is.
She didn't propose to change it.
Right.
All right.
Everybody get that?
That is the current motion. Is there any discussion from the commission?
I had a question.
Does the greenhouse, how does that pertain to the permitted use of horticulture under the AA agriculture permitted uses that would currently be covered in the PUD, where it says horticulture? And I'm not sure, that's all it says, so I don't know how you define that. Because aren't I understanding it correctly that the PUD includes wedding venue as well as everything that you could do under the General Ag 2A? Isn't that correct? Permitted uses in AA?
Yes.
So the question then is greenhouse, horticulture. Horticulture has something to do with raising vegetables, correct? Right.
But for commercial?
Well, it's silent.
No, but her motion excludes commercial greenhouse. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So then that would take precedent over if horticulture was commercial, correct?
It's specific to the greenhouse.
Okay.
Are there, Gretchen, do I ask for comments from the floor?
No, you're to the voting part.
Okay.
You've already been completely finished as far as the public hearing. Now you're deciding. I do think that you might want to get input from the applicant as to whether or not they're okay with it.
Okay, applicant?
Robert Sheets on behalf of the applicant. I'm their attorney, and everything is acceptable. One thing that Dr. Hahn would request, he is going to be planting bamboo, and he may want to sell bamboo off the property, but that's not a major market, and that would be the only thing. I mean, the trees and things like that, they're going to be sold, but it's not going to come out to the property to sell it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Under permitted agriculture, I think his tree sales will still be permitted. What will not be permitted is the commercial use of the greenhouse.
Right, and that's fine. We just want to make sure that, you know, we have fruit trees, we have regular trees,
I think
and
your
bamboo.
tree sales will still be permitted.
Yeah. And we just want to make sure
Or
that's
bamboo.
clarified.
May not be a tree, but
It's kind of. I guess we could bring pandas out there and feed them.
Thank you. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen? Discussion? We've had a motion.
There are things that we do and walk a fine line between developer and homeowner. It is a very tough job. Location, location, location. I think that's about as important thing as we can say.
Thank you.
I just want to say that the gentleman that's 500 feet away, and he mentioned that somebody wants to rent the venue, and are they going to follow the regulations?
You might put your mic on. It's kind of hard to hear. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess my concern, I'm worried about this person that lives 500 feet away, and that when people decide they want to rent the venue, are they going to follow the regulations? How much control do you have over people like that? Probably not a lot, I just wanted to make that comment before the voting.
I would think you would have a manager. At each event, wouldn't you not? I mean,
The owner plans to do it.
Yeah.
But you're right, I may have a heart attack.
Yeah, the guest may not know the rules, but the manager does, and that's who's in charge.
It's
Okay.
like any other business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or any other individual homeowner who needs to follow the rules of decorum in their neighborhood. Sometimes they do,
And sometimes
oftentimes they don't.
And sometimes they don't.
That's right. I mean, and we, as the planning commission, are not in any position to make those kinds of rules. Any other discussion?
Yes, but we as a planning commission need to know what is going to be the consequence of the enforcement of our rules. Can anyone tell me today,
If these rules are violated,
what are the consequences for the property owner? Because I've seen situations where the fine was so insignificant, and I think this occurs on Wall Street pretty often, where people will just pay the fine because of the insignificance of it and violate the rule. So, once again, do we have the answer to that question? I don't know what it is.
The other side of that question is, what is insignificant to you and what is insignificant to me? And I think that we can't answer that question. And you're, still as a representative?
As a representative, but also as just an attorney who practices in this area, you can be fined. You can be increasing fines. If it gets to be habitual, you can get injunctions. They can hire private attorneys and bring nuisance actions. There are consequences. The same consequences if the homeowners build over the building line, which is required. You know, they're either going to have to get...
So what is the fine for a public nuisance?
I don't know, but it's not $50.
The county fine system, I think, is left to the discretion of the court. It can be a ticket issued for every offense, so you can virtually stack them. But I think rather than develop a very intricate fee system, because the county has so many regulations and it would be so difficult to develop a fine system for every potential violation, we left it up to the judge. So it could be anywhere from 50 to
It could be thousands.
Could be thousands.
Could be thousands.
And I agree with Mr. Sheets. There are other causes of action as well.
And I do think the county could actually, if there were multiple violations, the county could ask for an injunction against further operation.
I must also bring up, as when I am chairman, do every time to Mr. Vaughn's perhaps concern, is that we are doing an advisory to the county commissions, and the advisory may or may not be followed. And during the course of this time, we have tried to allow as much conversation and placed on a minute and a tape of the concerns of everyone involved.
Further comments? Thank you. Where is Tyler? There you are. It's time for a vote.
He went home.
I'm calling a vote. Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mrs. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
No.
Mr. Benson.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria.
No.
Mr. Martin. Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
4-5.
Is that 4-3?
4-3.
I think 4-3, yes.
Result of the vote?
4-3.
For passage.
For passage.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone who's here today, and we
Mr.
appreciate
Chairman,
your input. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, all we did was pass her amendment to the PUD.
Well, I thought she was...
I have a motion with regard to the PUD.
I'm very sorry. I thought you were putting forth a vote for the... to approve
PUD.
To approve the PUD with those changes.
Well, I have a proposed amendment as well.
It's done.
We can amend the amendment.
Well, not if Gretchen says that was final passage, but that, my understanding was that was a motion to amend the PUD.
Not on the final.
And she didn't touch on my proposed amendment, so I didn't interrupt her.
Yeah. That was...
I understood it, Commissioner, I understood it as a vote on the
But item 5 says discussion and possible action to approve or deny. I did not hear an approve or deny in her motion.
A zoning change from...
I did not hear an approve or deny, so I think that the item 5, discussion possible action to approve, deny a zoning change from AA agricultural to rural residential district to planned unit development, PUD 2017-02 to develop and operate a special...
If there is a motion, a renewed motion to reopen number 5 and do whatever you want, re-clarify, amend, make sure you say approve, whatever, I think you should do that. But you need to have a majority vote on whether or not to reopen number 5.
Okay, I move that we reopen agenda item number 5.
I second.
Any discussion? Discussion? Does everyone understand what we're doing?
You want to vote?
Yes.
Let's have a vote.
Mrs. Martin?
No.
Mr. Ritchie?
No.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Bond?
Aye. No,
All right, now I will call for a motion to approve or deny.
He wants, excuse guys.
I have a motion to amend the PUD.
Oh, you're so...
And I don't...
Her motion is still approved.
No, not now.
No, we went back.
We just opened through...
You're starting over again.
Okay.
That she can re-articulate, or you can articulate that you accept her proposed amendment plus whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I will try to make this as
But
simple
you really don't have an agenda item. I mean, it's usually I make a motion to approve this PUD subject to the following amendment. So you're not, because there's not really an agenda item to amend their PUD.
So the first vote was illegal.
Well, I heard her say, my inference from her motion, I shouldn't want to approve it.
I think we can clear this up pretty quickly.
Just tidy it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Make it a little tighter.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 5 with subject to Ms. Martin's amendments, which were previously enunciated and passed. And then I'm trying to address Mr. Swartz's issue very probably inartfully, but with regard to fireworks. And on the page that continues from 9.11 restrictions, there is a subheading on the next page, fireworks. and I would propose simply the following. Fireworks are only allowed on Saturdays, New Year's Eve, and the 4th of July, striking the words the week of. Fireworks are limited to 30 days per year. Fireworks are prohibited after 10:30 p.m., excluding New Year's Eve and the 4th of July, striking the words week of the. Duration of fireworks shall not exceed 5 minutes, excluding New Year's Eve and the 4th of July. That limits the evening still to 30 days, but it limits the time. I've gone to the Edmond fireworks display on my entire life. Nothing happens after 10:30 because it's plenty dark to start the fireworks. And I would simply make that motion to address the issue regarding the use of fireworks late at night. And I want to affirm Ms. Martin's motions and amendments previously approved, and now move to amend or to approve the item unless there are further amendments.
Is there any discussion, any questions? Does everyone understand what we're doing?
He's made a motion. We need a second, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'll second it then.
Okay. Now, any more discussion? Hearing or seeing none, I'll call for a vote.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Furia?
I have to vote no again.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Commissioner Barr?
Aye.
Result of the vote?
5-2.
5-2. Okay, thank you very much. And again, thank you to those of you who've come out. Appreciate it. Agenda item number 7. Discussion and possible action to approve or deny the final plat of the Council Meadows 1, which is FP 2017-01. President, staff report?
Yeah, this is a small plat of property. Everything is in order. We have all of the requirements for this particular item.
Thank you very much.
I just might add, there are no roads to be built or anything in this plat. This is division of land, basically, in this particular plat and driveways.
Would you repeat what you just said?
There's no roads to be built in this particular item. There's no roads to be, just the actual driveways, and they have agreed upon those, and everything is meets county standards, is what I want to say.
Any questions of Tyler? Is there anyone here left that would like to speak on behalf of this?
Yes, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Whitus. I am the agent representing the owners on this plat application. It's simply dividing a 24-acre tract into 5 tracts to be sold to separate owners for residential purposes.
I have a question. This guy in the southeast corner, where is his right? How does he access his land?
If you look at the very top of the southwest lot, there's a 12-foot driveway easement. What is listed as Lot 4 and Lot 5 is the same landowner. He just wanted to split that lot for a potential, if he ever decided to sell the back 5 at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak against this item? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve or to deny this plat, final plat.
Make a motion that we approve item number 7, final plat.
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a vote.
Who's second it?
Oh, we need a second.
Yeah,
You second.
I second it.
You second it?
Yes.
Okay, it's been seconded. Excuse me.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Furia?
Yes.
Mr. Martin? And Commissioner Vaughn.
Item number 8 is a discussion and possible action to approve or deny the final plat of Mayflower Market. This is FP 2017-03. Is there someone here that would like to speak on behalf?
Good afternoon, evening, whichever it is. Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll representing the applicant, and obviously this is an exact duplicate of a preliminary plat you all approved just a couple of months ago. So no changes, and with that I'd ask for your approval.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this plat?
Will there be any outdoor music?
Yeah. No. And what are the decibels? Seeing no opposition, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve item number 8, final plat for Mayflower Market.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a vote.
Mrs. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Ritchie?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Appreciate your staying around.
Sorry you had to wait.
Item number 9 is is that the right one? Yeah.
Yep.
Discussion and possible action to approve or deny a BOCC resolution to amend the Oklahoma County zoning regulations in regard to setting a time limit to initiate construction or commence operations on approved special use permits.
Yes, if you remember, we were trying to make sure that the regulations are updated in regards to the special use permit.
Yeah.
This is a resolution to do that, to make it 5 years, 5 years with no action, then the plat is denied or it's revoked or whatever.
Did everyone get a copy of the resolution?
Yes. I move that we approve the resolution.
I don't like the language.
Okay.
I haven't really had an opportunity to review it. It was not submitted to me for independent review.
That's true.
Prior to this meeting. To me, the word revocation takes an affirmative action. I don't know whether this board is looking at an automatic termination or automatic action or a positive action on the part of the planning commission or the board of county commissioners. But the wording, to me, could be construed in different manners.
Would vacated work better?
No, I think vacation takes a positive action as well. I don't know what the intent was.
How silly of me. Do you have a recommendation?
No, I don't, because I was not given this in advance of the meeting.
All right. In light of...
We can defer.
Yeah, in light of that, do you wish to withdraw?
And I'm going to make
defer.
That's acceptable? I got someone to point a finger at our attorney. That's acceptable.
Good motion.
To all parties.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we defer, item number 9.
Until the next meeting.
Any discussion? The next meeting. Hearing no discussion, let's have a vote.
Okay, Mrs. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Furia?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
And Commissioner Bond?
No. I mean, aye.
Okay.
Item number 10, discussion and possible action in regards to the Garber-Wellington groundwater study. Before we go much further, I'd like to know what action, I mean, what are you expecting us to do here?
Just hear, listen.
Oh, just listen?
Update, this is more of an update.
All right. Then that's good. You better not be too long.
You're going to bring us some water from Houston?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to make this brief. Basically, the intent of the study, Stacy and I contacted Oklahoma Water Resources Board sometime back to look at the Garber-Wellington as far as development in the northwest part of the county and just how that formation, how it actually works and how that's going to restrict stuff in the future. They pointed us to the ACOG, the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, and individual there named John Harrington, who was able to help us. And so I just wanted to go over basically what the study was about and what we found out from the study. So like I said, basically the purpose of the study was to look at unincorporated Oklahoma County, the population increase that we've had over the last 10, 20 years or so. Basically the population out in the northwest part of the county has exploded. There's some numbers here that I have for you that you can look at. But basically with the rapid development that has occurred out in that part of the county, can the Garber-Wellington basically support that and continue to support that in the future? And so basically, is the groundwater supply sufficient to sustain a larger population in this area, and is the groundwater sufficient quality for domestic use? That was one of the main questions that we started with. Now, as the study went along, some of the additional questions that came up were droughts, some of those conditions. Basically, there was a drought that occurred in 2013, around that time period, where it affected Logan County, and the development that was there, that basically the residents ran out of water. There was a shortage. And so we wanted to see if that was possible to carry over to any of our developments or any future developments in our jurisdiction. So basically we wanted to know, well, was that shortage based on, just the drought itself? Was it based on, over drilling in that particular area? Those are some of the questions that we were looking at.
I'd like to really talk to that because it's due to both. As a person who's lived out there for 30 years and had unlimited water out of my well 30 years ago during the drought of 13, you could see the pump go dry. I mean, now I don't use that water. I mean, I'm on the Deer Creek water system, so that's just irrigation water. But I saw in 13 basically no water at my level of 75 feet. Secondly, I have to say that I know people upstream who had drilled wells, which is their total right whatsoever, and they wanted to keep their lawns as green as mine, because I might have set the standard. But if they didn't, people just turn it on, assume unlimited water, and when everybody's watering all the time, whether you need it or not, you really see effects. And heaven help us if somebody now is, in fact, depending upon that water for home consumption. I'm sorry that I'm getting all wound up here, but we have to, at some point in time, do some conservation here. I don't know what it is.
Sure, and that's kind of what this looks at, is how we move forward. So basically, we want to know if the drought itself was just due to a water shortage of over-drilling in that area. Was it due to the lack of saturated section in those wells themselves? Some of the other issues that we were looking at the same time is, since a lot of this area out in unincorporated Oklahoma County, and even back into the city limits, had a lot of oil activity, back in the days during the 20s, 30s, that time period. We wanted to see if, those activities had any effect as far as saltwater leakage from improperly plugged wells and so on. And so those were the things that we looked at. And so what the study area itself, these are some of the questions I brought up. That's basically the study area itself. There's the Garber-Wellington. Everything in the green was the area that we basically looked at and studied, and some of that goes over in the Canadian county as well. But basically, just some information about the aquifer itself. I mean, you saw how big it was, how many trillions of gallons of water that's in there. I mean, obviously, even the Deer Creek water system itself is dependent on the Garber-Wellington. So basically, the way the formation of the Garber-Wellington, and you can look at it here on this map a little bit better, as you get farther west, you started to get into the Hennessy Shell, which the shell is basically a cap. And so the question was, well, when you get west of that shell, are you going to be able to get good quality water still? Are you going to have a lack of quantity as well as quality? Those were the things that we wanted to look at. And so what it turned out to be is, basically, once you get west of Meridian, that's basically where that shell starts to come into play. And as you go west, it continues to get thicker and thicker and thicker. So basically, as you get to the western part of the Garber-Wellington and the shell area, the water quality deteriorates. The pH, your sodium, chlorides, and metals increase in that area. So your quality of water, maybe not necessarily the quantity, but the quality starts to deteriorate. So again, as you go back into that area there, you get into a lot of heavy metals as well, chromium, arsenic, uranium. Since the pH starts to rise, you have those metals start to dissolve more in that pH range. So as you take that into consideration, these domestic wells that people drill are unregulated. The only thing that really needs to be taken into account as far as from a domestic well point of view is basically bacteria. These heavy metals are not accounted for if you're drilling your own well for your own private use. To where with the Deer Creek water system, there are additional standards that have to be met, and these, heavy metals, bacteria, all these other things that could be in the water, they have to keep those within a certain range for it to be basically used by the general public compared to domestic water wells. So basically what we looked at is, these water wells that were out there, basically, like I said, once you get west of Rockwell, most of these water wells only penetrate the Hennessy Shell itself. You're not really getting into the Garber-Wellington. So these individuals who are using domestic water wells west of Rockwell really don't have high quality water compared as if you go back east to the Garber-Wellington. And so these are the main things that we've gotten out of this study is, well, okay, now we have a better idea of where the Hennessy Shell is, kind of some of its effects it's going to have. And so the question becomes, well, if you drill deeper, is that going to solve some of these issues? And, you know, obviously in some of these areas, drilling deeper, especially as you get farther west into the Hennessy Shale, that is not going to solve the issue.
Worse.
Yep, right, exactly. As you get deeper, you may actually get into worse situations. And so, you know, drilling deeper as you go back east in Meridian, that may solve some issues, not necessarily as quantity, because your quantity over there on that side is fairly good. But it may address some issues as far as quantity. And so that's what some of these points here are talking about. You know, a lot of the wells on the east side of Meridian, a lot of those wells are fed by Deer Creek, Chisholm Creek, your major creeks there. But with that in mind, you know, a lot of the creeks that we have out there, Chisholm Creek being one of them, are actually impaired for some sort of issue. The Chisholm Creek is impaired right now for nitrates. That can be anything from fertilizers, failing septic systems, pet waste, those sort of things. Bluff Creek is impaired for E. coli. That can be from fecal contamination, failing septic tanks as well. Deer Creek is impaired for turbidity, E. coli, as well as chlorpyrifos, which is basically an insecticide that's in the water. So even though you're getting your water from these ground sources, they're also impaired to some degree as well. So back to keeping those issues in mind, and back to the oil field issue as well. A lot of those areas out there, there's a lot of drilling, a lot of wells in a dense area. And so I know in Edmond, there's actually been some cases where there's subdivisions where someone has put a house on top of basically a saltwater pit from oil wells. And so that's what this slide talks about, is, you know, keeping that in mind as we develop our area. So basically, the groundwater model that was used was basically to approximate the subsurface flow in the aquifer. And so, excuse me, the next map that you'll see here kind of looks at that area. And so all these dots that are represented here are basically water wells that have been reported to OWRB as far as being drilled. You know, obviously you can't kind of see, okay. As you get back up into the green area, you know, not all this is Oklahoma County, some of this is Logan County, but as you go back east, obviously you're going to have quality water. As you go back west, basically around where Cedar Ridge Farms is, MacArthur, maybe even a little bit before that, your water quality is going to start to drop off significantly, and it doesn't matter how far you drill, you're going to have an issue. And so one of the things I wanted to point out on this map, specifically if you look on the bottom left corner where you kind of see that swirl mark, and up top where you see some of these swirl marks that are circles, basically that is what is called a cone of depression, to where you have a lot of users in that area who are drawing down the water table significantly in that area. Now, for the most part, in our jurisdiction, you don't see that, which is good. But some areas outside of our jurisdiction, you're starting to see that, and I want to point that out just to keep that in mind as we move forward. So the most important stuff is, like I said, there's no drawdowns, localized drawdowns in our area right now. You know, like I said, if you had that, you would have that circular wrapping around type of effect that I pointed out there. You know, right now, based on everything that we've seen, there's really not an issue with spacing. You know, some of our denser subdivisions that are on water wells are Cedar Ridge Farms, Cumberland Crossing, Southerly Farms. You know, those are some of our denser ones that are on wells only. And so far we haven't seen any issues based on this model. But again, if there was a drought or something and someone actually had an issue in these particular subdivisions, it would be because it wasn't drilled far enough down, not necessarily because a quality.
To whom are they supposed to report this? I mean, in our neighborhood, we have had, I bet we have 20 wells now. And people next door, one we usually send I'm an OSU guy, so you send the water up to OSU, and we've had OSU not send the water back, give them a telephone call saying, do not use this for anything. Do not water, cap your well. You just sucked up a couple thousand, maybe $10,000. We've heard this in several places. Okay, but then the guy next door drills a 250-foot well. That's perfect water.
Sure.
I mean, but to whom do we report this to, or do we try to coordinate this, or because most of the time the people who in fact are going to drill the well don't ask anybody but the driller, and the driller bails down till he gets what he will call good water, and then you leave.
Sure.
And half the time it's not.
Well, that's the point of this study. Basically, you have all this development that's occurring, but we don't know if we have enough water to sustain this. So basically, if you're calling me about the issue that you're having, there's nothing I can do. Basically, as a private property owner, you're taking that risk on yourself.
So there's really no one they can call. They just took a crapshoot and lost.
Exactly. I mean, you can call OWRB and notify them of that, but as far as, the only really repercussion you can have is possibly get on the Deer Creek water.
I know. I'm so sorry that people want to go, but this is really a hot topic. I know of one person where OSU said don't use this for anything, and he's ignored them.
Right. I mean,
and he can do that. He can
sure.
just do that.
Exactly. Because
anybody downstream from him is.
Well, I mean, basically, domestic water wells are not regulated as heavily as public water supplies. So you, as a private homeowner, you take that risk by drinking the water that you bring up from the ground.
If they put it out, then it goes into Deer Creek or Bluff Creek or.
Well, it's groundwater anyways. It's going to go back.
Okay.
I mean, you're not affecting.
Sorry, I just don't understand, and I get excited about your project.
No, you're fine. I mean, basically, the whole purpose of this study is to look at this at this level now, so when we get to the master plan, we can move forward with some ideas. So this is basically the beginning of moving forward with the master plan. This is something that staff has wanted to do for years and years and years. We just didn't have the money to do it, and basically ACOG was able to help us out with our request. We came to them more than a year ago. So this is something that's been in the works for the last year and a half, and we've got this report within the last few months. So we want to bring this information to you guys, and we want to take this to the Board of County Commissioners, and ultimately we want to have a public meeting to let everybody know what we found out and how we're going to move forward. That's the purpose of this. So basically, what we've concluded at this point is there's pockets of issues, and it's going to be hard to find all those pockets at this point in time. We're basically at step one of many. But basically, based on this exercise, there's been no indication that density is a concern. Obviously, quality of water is a concern, and quantity to some degree, especially during drought conditions, but the quantity seems to be the biggest concern. So obviously the simplest solution would be to get everybody on Deer Creek water. But again, that is a groundwater run system. So you have to keep that in mind, but they have higher standards that they have to follow, so you're going to have more testing that occurs, so you don't run into this issue with heavy metals in the water, basically not being able to drink it. So, where do we go from here? And so, one of the things that these are just 3 points of discussion, but one of the things we could do is have developers do a detailed water study of the developments they want to do. So they got to determine what type of water is there, how long is that water going to be good for, if it is good, and if it's not good, well, that up front. So we don't move forward to where you have basically homeowners who have bought a house, they've moved out there, they've invested a lot of money, and they're just stuck. So another thing you could do, like I said, is get everybody on to.
May I?
Sure.
Just a moment. This number one requirement, the problem that I see out there, because I live out there too, is that water changes within a very short distance. I mean, it's just not a big pool down there. It's like fjords or lagoons. It's fingers of water. So I hit bad water at my place, and a guy who is right across the road, 100 yards away, hits good water. And a developer runs a study, depending on how ethical he is, he runs down until he finds one of these good pools, or he runs down, he hits, and he says, I've got bad water.
Well, I mean, obviously that's
Yeah.
something that we're going to have to look at, but
Right.
these are just some ideas that came, and it's going to be something that you're going to have to look at further as time goes on. But, you know, basically, we could also go as far as limiting development so the groundwater supply is not exacerbated as time goes on.
And it's the depth of the well. Sometimes people will drill a well, much deeper than is suggested, and if they still will not hit good water, and the old timers will say, well, they drilled too deep, that's why they got salt. I mean, it's really frustrating.
Sure.
And I feel fortunate you got nailed.
But and we have already seen as a commission what limiting density, the resistance that has in this area. If we start doing that on a larger scale, limiting the density again, we're going to have a revolt out there. That's guaranteed
I mean, and these are all things that we're going to have to figure out as we go through this process.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one thing that's going to, as a cure-all, but, these are some things that came up off the top of our head that we could at least have a discussion with. And so basically, that's where we are at this point in time. Like I said, we're going to try to go to the Board of County Commissioners to also talk about this, but also have a public meeting out there. But not only talk about this, but also get ramped up for the master plan amendment. And these are all issues that we're going to have to figure out on how we want to move forward. Do we want to keep everything the way it is? Do we want to make it more stringent? All those are questions that are going to have to be answered.
Well, we appreciate your presentation, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of my fellow commissioners, but if you need anything, when you go before the Board of County Commissioners, if you need any support, if you let at least three of us know, I'm sure we'll be there.
Sure. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think you would get almost the same amount of participation at one of these meetings as you saw here, because the people are just as concerned about the water as they are the density and everything else.
Sure.
Matter of fact, they probably more, which is good.
Aaron, okay, I think Jim, you asked the question, somebody's got a bad well, okay, and OSU said, do not use this water for any, and they're using it, they're watering their lawn, and that water is keep going back into the ground. You're saying that doesn't,
I mean, you're pulling the water from the ground to begin with. You're not contaminating what you're pulling from. I mean, the only way
No, I mean, if you put it, if you put it on you're spreading it out on the ground, you're watering your lawn, you're irrigating whatever, and now that contaminated water is seeping into the groundwater.
It's a loop.
It's a loop.
Somebody's like 100 feet away or something, and they've got a good well, but.
And there is a restriction because of the E. coli between the septic system and the well.
Yeah, right.
Well, not everybody's aware of that.
I mean, to answer your question, it is basically a loop. The only time that it's not is if you have, let's say you have a house that you built on top of an old saltwater pit. And so you drill down however far, let's say it's 200 feet that you drilled down and you're getting good water. But let's say that you're casing up on top, let's say it's only 10, 20 feet of casing. And so for whatever reason you have seepage from this saltwater pit that gets in to your water well, then yes, you are contaminating your well itself because of that salt water that is seeping in. And so one of the things that this report has pointed out, most of these wells on Deer Creek, they have the casing maybe 20 feet, to where really the casing should be 50 feet or more, so you don't get any surface contamination that gets us back into the water.
Eric, thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Is there, can members of this commission get a copy of that report?
Yeah, what I'm going to plan to do here pretty shortly is try to put it online, so everybody can read it, but yes.
All right. Thank you. Item number 11, discussion and possible action to receive the August 2017 fee fund report. And you know where the fee fund report is, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like it's $36,000 this month.
Yeah.
Good, bad, indifferent?
Very good.
Very good.
Last 3 or 4 months.
Great.
Been very good.
I'll hear a motion to receive the fee fund report.
I'll make a motion to receive.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we receive the fee fund report for August. All those in favor signify by vote.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Ritchie, Mr. Benson.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Yes. Aye.
Mr. DeFuria.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
And Commissioner Bond.
Note the admonition about new business. I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor signify by vote.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Ritchie, Mr. Benson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. DeFuria,
Aye.
Mr. Martin, and Commissioner Bond.
We are adjourned.
All right, don't run.